Off and running on the Krueger Show. Hope everybody's doing having a great day. It's June 27th, 2024, 8:36 on the West Coast, 11:36 on the East Coast. NBA Draft Day, number 2, part 2. And we're going to get into a lot of it coming up next. Little Niners, little Warriors. We're going to start with some Warriors, and then we'll get on to the Niners. Dieter Kurtenbach, you catch him on San Jose Mercury News, also on KMBR. And, of course, the great Frank Red in the house. And, of course, he's got the In the Dungeon show, which is fantastic as well. Gentlemen, good to see both of you. We're going to get into some 49ers at some point because I definitely have to throw some Niners in and talk some Niners as we do a lot. But tonight was NBA Draft night number 2. And Bronny is now officially a teammate of LeBron James. He was drafted by the Lakers. I think that was probably the big story of day 2 was that the Lakers found a way to get Bronny. And then the question is, how good is he? So why don't we start there? And then, of course, the Warriors picked up a couple players today. They had the 52nd pick. They traded it, from what I understand. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong here. They had the 52nd pick in the draft. They traded the 52nd pick in the draft to OKC for a swingman.
Lindy Waters the third.
Lindy Waters the third.
Yes.
Sounds like anytime you're, somebody the third, it always sounds
the third.
Like family.
I didn't know the prior two Lindy Waters, so I'm not sure why he needs the third. That's a pet peeve of mine. I can appreciate wanting to honor your elders, honor your father, and all that, but I didn't know your dad, so I don't need the descriptor. But
by the way, I should properly introduce everybody. Joining us on the show tonight is Dieter Kurtenbach the 5th and Frank Red the 4th. I'm Larry Krueger the 3rd.
If there were multiple Dieter Kurtenbachs, I'm not sure that this would be a good plan to be living on.
This world cannot handle multiple Dieter Kurtenbachs. But yeah, Lindsey Waters the third from OKC, and then from what I understand, the Warriors then bought the 52nd pick back from Sam Presti and took a 7th.
They bought it from Portland. At some point in between the Warriors spending money on the pick, Portland acquired the pick. I don't know when that happened, but they bought it from Portland.
Yeah.
Oh, so they bought it from Portland. I stand corrected, like a man in orthopedic shoes, as Tommy used to say. So they bought it from Portland, and they took the Boston College center, Quentin Post, who doesn't look like much of an athlete, but, man, he is a shooter. This guy can shoot. The guy shot 51% from the field and 43.1% from three-point range in his final college season. Lacks mobility, but he is clearly a three-point shooter. I'll start. First of all, did either of you, now Dieter probably, I would guess no, but maybe Frank, because I know Frank's a big college basketball fan. Were you familiar with Lindsey Waters the third, or were you familiar with the 7-footer Quentin Post from Boston College, Frank?
Waters went to what college? Because in the back of my mind,
Oklahoma State.
Oak State.
Yeah. I've seen him maybe a couple of times and didn't think much of him with regards to Scott. He's basically the same player that I thought the Warriors might be interested in, Larry, which is P.J. Hall, 6'10" center out of Clemson.
Right. We saw him in the tourney.
Very similar.
He signed with Denver today after he drafted.
Yeah, very similar players. I thought that the Warriors would go in that direction just based on the fact that they got a rim runner in Jackson Davis, but they needed more strength and physicality up front. And I think the Scott kid can not only shoot, but I think first and foremost, if he makes the club and he has a role, it's going to be physical on the interior. So I'm not surprised that they went in that direction at all.
His name's Quentin Post. That's
Quentin Post.
Quentin Post. Yeah.
It's not
Dieter, I'll throw it your direction. Had you ever heard of Post or Waters?
I was loosely familiar with Post just because he was somebody who was ballied to be in that range. I go back with Sam Vecini of The Athletic. We used to get very drunk together in Los Angeles and talk basketball. Okay. And so I adhere to his draft guide as a noble disciple, and he was somebody who was sort of in the range that the Warriors could be picking. So I spent 5 to 10 minutes on him. Post is not where he is going to be spending his time. He will be spending all of his time on the perimeter, and I'm skeptical that he can make the team on the principle of what you mentioned, Larry, the lack of athleticism. He's a smart enough player, but he can really fill it up from outside the arc. And you think about the problems that the Warriors had last year. Of so many of them, one of them was there was times that they had 2, sometimes 3. I can remember a lineup that had 4 non-shooters on the floor. And modern NBA, where you just saw the Boston Celtics win a championship playing 5 out and basically just playing, analytic baseball and just saying like, nope, it's going to work out. We're just going to keep shooting threes. You can't have more than one non-shooter on the floor in the NBA in 2024. In fact, you couldn't have done that in 2020 or 2018 really either. And here we are in the ruining the league. Warriors were out here ruining the league in a whole other way by just turning in ungodly basketball in the worst possible way. So I think this is a guy who, if he does have enough for you on the defensive side, and that's a big ask because of his shooting ability.
And there was a K on the end there, right?
The big ask. Yeah. He does not have a big ass. He's very balanced for a big man. He doesn't have any athleticism. He had the lowest vertical leap at the combine. He had the vertical leap of like 27 inches. I'll translate that for you. That's just a little over 2 feet. And I'm not going to lie to you right now, Larry. I think I can beat it. And I have no athleticism whatsoever. So
Dieter one time got tripped up by a phone book. I believe.
No, but probably accurate. I mean, I'm constantly getting tripped.
That's the question. I mean, okay, first of all, I guess the first one, Waters.
Yeah.
Should we read that as, is he, he's supposed to be a pretty good defender as well and a very good shooter. I'll say this.
He's good.
When you see guys shoot the ball aggressively on the break when they've got all 5 guys in the front court, and the guy who shoots the ball is the last guy down the floor. That means you're either a gunner or you're a sniper. And the difference is just, does the ball go through the net? And when I saw a couple highlights of this kid, shooting, as I said, he's walking into a 3, bringing it up when all 4 of his teammates are, already up floor, and he just kind of walked into it, didn't pass to anybody, and shot the ball and made it. So obviously he's a tremendous shooter. But is he the replacement for Klay Thompson? Is he the guy that they draft with the idea that Klay's moving on? What do you guys think?
That's pretty aggressive. But again, this Warriors team just didn't have enough shooting last year. So any person you can bring in, whether it's a Lindy Waters, who's probably an end of the bench guy, more of a Lester Keone's replacement than anything else, or if it's post, you just need dudes who can space the floor, because Andrew Wiggins' 3-point shot isn't going to magically come back. They're losing Chris Paul, but there were points last year, a lot of points, where Chris Paul just decided he wasn't shooting the 3. You don't know what's going to happen with Klay. I still think they bring him back, but you have to mitigate circumstances if something bad were to happen. This team just dramatically needed more shooting. It needs a lot of things. It needed shooting. That's the name of the game in the modern NBA. And these are 2 guys who have a lot of warts on their game, don't get me wrong, but they can shoot it. And there's a guy who the Warriors have been kind of tied to in trade rumors for years, Mike Muscala, who's currently with OKC.
Kind of a big man who shoots the corner 3. Is that kind of what he is?
Just a true stretch 5. And when we talk about a Robin Lopez or a Brooke Lopez, something like that, when you have Draymond Green, who shot a lot of 3s last year, and in the first half was pretty good at it, and in the second half we don't talk about it, you need somebody who can just space the floor and let him actually play center. And I think that this could work. But again, the defensive questions with Post are going to be severe, and Summer League is going to be interesting. And with Waters, he can absolutely fill it up. He was probably the best player on the best team in the G League, Oklahoma City's G League team. That says a little something to me. And I wouldn't be afraid to throw him in for 5 to 10 minutes a game, and maybe he turns into something more than that. But I think the Warriors see him as a rotation piece or a fringe rotation piece.
Yeah, I think the Warriors felt that they needed to somehow, some way, just increase their talent base. If they think Waters is a guy who has potential, then they wanted to get him basically for nothing. With regards to posts, I mean, we're talking a lot about his ability to stretch the floor. If he gets on the floor, it will be because he's rebounding and playing defense. Unless they have another free agent signing that they're looking at. And there are some guys out there. You got Drummond, Muscala. I mean, there's some guys out there that the Warriors are probably looking at. But
Drummond is very close to Steph Curry.
Yeah, I think offense generally is the second thing that comes, especially when you consider there's a limited amount of shots for reserve players to have in the first place. So I watched some tape on post, and what I was impressed with more than his shooting was his ability to, pass the ball when guys go back door, dribble handoffs, diving to the basket. He knows how to rim run. Even if he's not elevating above the rim, he can catch it, power it up, and shoot it. So I think he fits the model with regards to intelligence, which is what the Warriors are always looking for. And Linke is just a wild card. I mean, this guy might be a player that can move from a ninth man to maybe a sixth or seventh man in the rotation. You never know.
No, he's got the talent to do it, for sure.
Let's talk about post for a second. How important is it to have a diversified skill set in this era of kind of pace and space? Or do you just want the biggest guy with the highest shooting percentage from beyond the arc? Is it enough to be a non-athlete, a non-rim protector, a non-defender, but maybe make 45% from three and be a legit 7-footer? I mean, where is the league right now? Can a guy like Post, who's got a lot of holes in his game, can he get by and earn minutes just by shooting over 40% from three and being a 7-footer?
I think so. I mean, it is a skill set that is pretty rare for his size. And again, it's a big issue on the defensive side, and it's something that he'll never be a major minute player. He's never going to be the kind of guy who's going to give you more than 20 a night. And if he does, you're not a very good basketball team. He just doesn't have that. But I'm in total agreement on the offensive side. There is so many little things that he does right. And you think about, Kevon Looney, who is a wonderful basketball player. He fell out a little bit. His game fell off a little bit last year. But you think about all the small things that Kevon Looney does. I think Post could probably match that. And in fact, I mean, it's probably a little bit of white guy extrapolation here, but there's a little bit of Andrew Bogut to this guy in the high post. Now, you have to remove the other side of the floor. He's nothing like Andrew Bogut on defense. Andrew Bogut was an elite defender, and this guy might not make the NBA because of his defense. But when you talk about the ability to set hard screens, to be a little flashy with the pass, to see the floor, to kind of play quarterback out there in an offense that, as much as we talk about Steph Curry being a point guard, he's not actually running point in the offense. It's Draymond Green. It's oftentimes a wing bringing the ball up the floor to run some sort of split action. I think that they can get the high post game going again. And when the Warriors were at their best, it was Bogut doing the high post game. And then another guy that, we don't talk about enough, but was such a wonderful player for the Warriors is Mo Spates. And Mo Spates couldn't play a lick of defense. Mo Spates would rebound. Don't get me wrong. Mo Spates did enough, but he would set good screens and he would have that 17 to 18 foot jumper. And he would just give you quality minutes in what he could provide as quality, about 15 to 18 minutes a game at the absolute maximum. It's a long journey between now and Post becoming a Mo Spates 2.0 or a modern day Mo Spates.
Or if you want to go old school for some of the from older guys, of Big Vic Alexander.
I love it. I love
Big Vic.
A little Glenn Big Dog Robinson. I mean, we can go all day on this thing. A LaMarcus Aldridge for some of the younger folks out there. I mean, again, you have to look at who just won the title. You have to look at, even back-to-back titles. You got Nikola Jokic, who's one of the great players in the history of the NBA, but he's a stretch five, though nothing about him is traditional. And then you go Kristaps Porzingis, Al Horford. They're not even going in the paint. They haven't put an ass in anybody all season for the Boston Celtics. That's the way the league is going. And even, you look at some of the teams that were in contention, like Rudy Gobert, he's a classic center in so many ways, but look at him on offense. When they got into a tough series, he's floating around on the perimeter, doesn't really know what to do because you can only run the rim so often. You have to have a viable threat to shoot from the outside on your team. The Warriors didn't have one at the 5. Now they might have one, and I think that's an interesting development.
We're often Well, just 1 second, Frank. We just do a little reintro. We're 15 minutes into the Krug Show. I forgot to mention the sponsors off the rip. We are brought to you. Can you believe that? We're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out there in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week, folks, from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Get some brisket. Go get some brisket chili. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Tell them Krug sent you. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corners, Sports Cards and Collectibles, 205 Cypress Avenue down in Pacific Grove along the Monterey Peninsula. If you want sports cards or sports collectibles, go see my man Anthony Catania. You can give him a call at 831-521-5264. And also thanks to Underdog Fantasy. Check the link in the description. Use that promo code Krug, K-R-U-E-G, and they will match you up to your first $100. If you're tuning in tonight, we're going to start with the Warriors, talk a little NBA draft, then we'll get into some Niners. What we won't be talking about, despite many people commenting in the chat, is the presidential debate.
And I'm sure guys, mind was made up.
And now everybody's going to leave because we're not talking about Biden or Trump. But no, we're, more than anything, I'm sure everybody's got their political thoughts or maybe watched the debate. I'm sure it was highly rated. But you know what? I created this forum as a respite from the reality of life. And so even though that's very much a reality and on people's minds, I really don't care. I mean, it's not that I don't care. I've got opinions. You've got opinions. I just don't want to use this forum to talk about it. So if you don't see me reading your reviews of the debate, forgive me. I'm just trying to make this kind of an apolitical forum because that's what I chose it to be, and that's what I always wanted it to be. So I hope you guys understand. Frank, go ahead. I interrupted you, but you were going to comment. You were going to jump in there.
No, I was going to go a little even older school.
Older than Big Vic?
Yeah, older than Big Vic. After playing against him, Post actually reminds me a little bit of Tom Tolbert.
Hey, now
I thought what I thought you were going to say because he kind of reminds me body type wise. Reminds me a little bit of Lambeer.
Yeah, no, he's a Lambeer, Tom Tolbert. I played against Tom, and Tom is kind of jovial and has a gregarious personality on the radio. But Tom was a tough player.
Yeah, he was a banger, man.
He was a very tough guy. And that's what the Warriors need from Post. And if he shows that he can do those core things, because that's what the Warriors do. When Draymond Green's on the court, the Warriors defense goes up exponentially. So you can't be a softy on the court looking for your three ball with this team. That's what Clay and Stephen Curry and the rest of these guys are going to do. So the Warriors, over the past couple of years, particularly against the LA Lakers, have come up soft. And when you look at the Western Conference, Dallas is a lot tougher. OKC couldn't do jack in the playoffs because up front, they're pretty soft. The Warriors knew that they had a void, and they're looking for Post to not be some hack job out there, but to establish himself as a physical presence and also show that he can do some of the other things. Al Horford, still, as nice as he is, can be a little physical. Porzingis, not much, but they had a yin and yang there. So physicality from the five, I think, is still valued for teams that win in the playoffs.
There was another player that the Warriors got today. They also signed Reese Beekman, a 6'3" point guard from Virginia, who's a Milwaukee, Wisconsin kid, went to Scotlandville High School, pretty tall, athletic point guard. Played at Virginia. Virginia's been a really good program the last few years. He's a pass-first point guard. He's a playmaker, 4 years at UVA, big wingspan, 6'3", almost 8.5 feet standing reach. Legitimate point guard skills, they say. Very good ability to run the pick and roll, can throw the lob, attacks the rim. What do you guys think? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I watch college basketball and I watch UVA. I never really studied Beekman. He's going to be on their summer league team. He's an efficient distributor. He's got a 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, 6.2 assists, 2.1 turnovers, 4-year career at UVA. Definitely improved year after year from an efficiency standpoint. Kind of regressed a little bit as a senior. Did shoot 35% from three on a high volume as a junior, making 2.2 a game. His shooting, I guess they say, and scoring is a little bit of a work in progress. Career 32% from three, career 76% from the foul line, and he's nearly 23 years old. Is this something or nothing? Is he an NBA player, or is he going to be on the outside looking in?
It's probably a nothing. Now, you might remember fairly recently the Warriors had another point guard at a UVA, Ty Jerome. And there's some similarities there, though this guy is much better built for the rigors of playing defense in the NBA. He could be a really good defender. Heaven knows the Warriors already have a pretty good guy who's a point guard, theoretically, who can't really do anything offensively, and Gary Payton II, who's opted into his contract. So he has an opportunity, right? He has an opportunity at Summer League, and if he goes off and if he is really, really impressive, and the terrible shooting at Virginia and the kind of lack of any offensive game other than sort of running the system, if he shows a little bit more than that, if he shows some flash, some pizzazz, something that's intriguing, he has an opportunity to get to training camp and keep showing people stuff. But there's going to be some really good players. I mean, there's really good players on every Summer League team that are not signed. They're just brought in before they go over to Europe. And there's going to be a couple guys in the Summer League in Vegas who make NBA training camp rosters and even NBA rosters based off of their performances when they were given, almost no shot whatsoever. This guy could be one of them, but there's also going to be 6 or 7 other dudes on the team that the Warriors put in Las Vegas that have a shot at that too. And I imagine that they're going to bring in a lot of point guards because they are looking for that third point guard, with Podziemski now being the backup to Steph on the depth chart. What
do you think, Frank? You watch Beekman at all at UVA?
Haven't watched Beekman. Kind of was aware of Virginia last year. I think they underachieved last year.
Yeah.
Ryan Dunn is a player, a New York kid. They just underachieved. I love their coach. I like this young man's measurables with 32% in college, small 3-point line, a lot of shots uncontested. Doesn't get me real excited. Brandon Podziemski as the backup point guard scares me, to be quite honest with you. I'm looking at like Monte Morris, somebody like that. I think the Warriors need to go out and get a veteran point guard who's not that expensive, who can help bring Brandon along. This young man, hey man, I root for the underdog, but G League at best to me until he shows me he can shoot 38% from the 3-point line. It's really tough for these kids to play in the NBA.
All right, what's the latest on we didn't get Paul George to the Warriors, but we're hearing it rumored. Free agency starts in a few days, right? We'll get a chance to see free agents move around. Is Paul George going to come to the Warriors? Are they going to trade for him? If it's Wiggins, fine. If it's Wiggins and Chris Paul's expiring $30 million, fine. If it's those two guys and Looney, fine. If you got to include Peyton, fine. You got to include multiple ones, fine. I draw the line at Kuminga. I'm not trading Kuminga for Paul George. I love Paul George, but Paul George is 34, going on his age 34 season, I believe. That's where I would draw the line. I don't want to move Kuminga.
Who knows? Jonathan Kuminga can maybe even turn into a Paul George one day.
Yeah, I mean, and look what Kuminga was at 19. Look what he is at 21. We can dream on what he could be at 23. Heck, by the time this guy even gets to his physical prime, which is probably 25, 26, he could be an all-star. He could be a perennial all-star. He could be the best player
or you could get a guy who was all NBA last year and the year before that and the year before that. I mean, how much it's a question. And if you want to commit the operation, the entire organization to Jonathan Kuminga. So I don't draw the line personally at Kuminga, but ultimately it doesn't matter because they're not bringing in Paul George. This is all.
You don't think so?
No. I mean, if they are going to
all
do
those reports, Dieter, about them agreeing to a 4-year extension with George, those are all just that's just people just chit chatting pretty much.
Yeah, they definitely have not. They have definitely not agreed to a 4-year contract extension with Paul George, incumbent on him being traded from the Los Angeles Clippers to the Golden State Warriors. That has not happened. Now they are probably willing to give him a 4-year contract at the max. I mean, they can, and I am willing to take on the role as the King of Monaco. I mean, there's a lot of things that we're willing to do. hypotheticals, we can go any which direction, but I can tell you that there has not been an agreement from the Warriors that they'll give them the max. It can be inferred, but it has not been formally agreed to because, one, you can't really do that right now. And two, if they want to make a move, Paul George has to opt into his contract, and then the Warriors would have to make this move at some point. I don't even think I think they have fewer than 24 hours to get this done. I think that we're at this. I think it's 9 p.m. tomorrow because that's when Chris Paul's contract has to be guaranteed for next year or waived.
Right.
In the Warriors scenario. Now they could come to an agreement with Chris Paul that says, hey, we're going to extend this deadline a little bit, but they can only extend it by a couple of days because the new league rules as it pertains to trades and aggregating salaries and the second apron, which the Clippers are absolutely in and the Warriors are technically in because of cap holds, that goes into effect on July 1. So if it was hard enough to trade for him before, it's 10 times harder to trade for him on July 1. All this to say that if the Warriors were really if the Warriors were doing this Paul George thing and the Clippers were interested in doing this Paul George thing, which, by the way, there's no indication that they are, this thing would have to be so far down the tracks as of right now that we would basically be saying it's fait accompli. And at the moment, as far as I can tell by my conversations with people, this is all just still a hypothetical what if. And hypothetical what ifs don't turn into the largest trade in the NBA this season, with all apologies to Mikal Bridges and so many others. Like, this doesn't turn into a ground. You don't pull that off in 24 hours. It just doesn't happen. So I don't see it going down. I think they waive Chris Paul tomorrow and they take their chances with Clay in free agency. And I like their chances with Clay in free agency.
I'm going to use some Frank Red logic.
Let's
go ahead.
Ballmer's not going to get punked by the Warriors.
Yeah.
All right. I mean,
great call.
And from Paul George's perspective, do you see how happy his parents are in the front row every game when they play home games?
The happiest anyone's ever been at a Clippers game.
You know what I'm saying? So
except for Billy Crystal.
and they got a spaceship that they have to put people in.
That's right.
So, this is what people hate, the tough part of negotiations. If I'm Paul George, I stomp my feet as hard as I can and I get as much money as I can. But I can't see him leaving Los Angeles. I just can't see that. The Warriors, you know what? They should have had multiple plans because to let Chris Paul's contract expire without using that thing to tag on with Wiggins to get a player, even if it's not Paul George, I think is a misstep because they need to get better. They really do.
But they more importantly need to shed salary. And by the way, some of the moves that they made today inhibits them from ever going into this, fabled second apron this upcoming season. So they are actually hard capped as of right now because when they bought that pick from Portland via Oklahoma City via themselves, that was a cash deal, and a cash deal, when you send cash out, now you are hard capped at the second apron. So it makes it all the more complicated. They got to shed cash, and Chris Paul's an easy way to do it. Yeah. And you're also dealing in an environment where it has to be number for number. So it's listen, Mike Dunleavy Jr., I'm sure there's a lot of very smart people with the Warriors who spend all day, every day thinking about this stuff, and they're far more capable and competent than I am. That's for sure. I mean, that is not a high bar. They are well above it. I'm sure someone could come up with a creative solution to the Warriors' problem because it does. I'm with you. It looks like they're just heading to, we'll just lose the salary and everything's just sort of being rote and binary and straightforward and uninteresting and exciting and kind of roll this thing back for next year. But again, if that creativity exists, if they have some grand plan, they needed to show their hand a couple of days ago because I could have told you Mikal Bridges was going to the Knicks a week and a half ago based on some of the conversations that were happening. I mean, these things don't happen overnight. I know deadlines get things to actually occur, but these things have to boil and marinate for a long time before you actually put them on the grill and then serve dinner. So I'm just not bullish that they're going to do anything interesting outside of maybe spend some money with the mid-level exception.
That's disappointing to me.
It sounds to me like they're more interested in dipping below the luxury tax or whatever than and that second apron and getting their financial house in order than they are really in contending or making some dramatic move that's going to somehow put them, vault them into contender status next year. with Steph Curry. I think they would love to, but I don't think they can do both. I mean, I think that the priority is going to be getting their financial house in order, because the reality is that the new CBA makes it it's dull and it's not worth talking about, but there's like 5 different things that are now attached to being above that second apron that are so punitive that you can't really
go over it. They got hard cap today.
Yeah.
They can't.
They got hard cap, but I mean, they intentionally hard cap themselves.
Yeah, that's right. They were never going to do it. Now they can't.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's
so.
onerous.
What is the solution? I mean, what are they going to do? They just running it back next year with these 2 guys they got. I mean, I'll give you this. Monty Poole, who writes for NBC Sports Bay Area, went through 5 free agents that he thinks that might be realistic for the Warriors, and I'll just list them to you. We all know these guys. It's Malik Beasley. It's Reggie Bullock Jr., former North Carolina sharpshooter. It's Eric Gordon, who's God, he's old. I mean, what is he, 35 at this point? That's
42 NBA teams.
Yeah, he's got a lot of age on him. Lonnie Walker the fourth, who had a real nice performance against the Warriors.
That's right, Game 6, Lonnie Walker.
I think it was Game 4, right?
Was it Game 4? It was in Los Angeles. I was there for it.
It was the clincher, wasn't it? Wasn't it Game 4? 15-point fourth quarter.
Well, that was 6. If it was the clincher, it would have been 6. It doesn't matter. Lonnie Walker had one good game one time against the Warriors.
Yeah, he says it was Game 4. But then Buddy Hield, who Buddy Hield can flat out shoot it. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
And other people are saying they might stay in house and re-sign Lester Quinones, who's going to be a restricted free agent. Monty says they also could consider reacquiring Alec Burks, who's a 40% three-point shooter. I mean, none of these guys are getting them over the top. I mean, first of all, any of those names, to me, I guess the most intriguing name on that list for me would be Buddy Hield, just because at least Buddy Hield can shoot the ball, and that's real. The rest of those guys I don't really like that much. I mean, I guess Lonnie Walker a little bit, but
I like Alex Burks. I do.
Like Burks. Okay.
Yeah, because he was here before. And when Thibodeau finally got him off the bench last year in the playoffs, he actually played pretty well. I think he's a smart guy, although his family lives in Detroit, apparently. So, that could be problematic because he generally goes and his family doesn't always go with him. But I like Alec Burke. I do. And tangentially listening to some of the players on the Warriors, they like playing with him also.
Yeah, he was really upset when he got traded, and that's when he was on the worst team in the NBA. That was that Warriors season where Steph broke his hand. I enjoyed covering him. I thought he was a stand-up guy and a pretty good player. But he's in no way a needle mover or game changer. No. He's a pretty good player to have as the 8th or 9th guy off the bench. 8th or 9th guy on your roster. If he's anything more than that, your team sucks, as we saw with the Detroit Pistons and at times last year the Knicks before they went on that hot streak. Malik Beasley is an interesting one, but he can't play any defense. Reggie Bullock is a good player. That's fine. I would stay away from Lonnie Walker. I don't like it. He's just not a very good basketball player. There's a reason he's out in the wilderness. By the way, these would be guys that you'd have to get on the minimum. And I don't think Buddy Hield's a minimum player. The Warriors have 2 exceptions.
Don't they have the mid-level? Don't they have their mid-level and mini mid-level?
That's right. Yeah, they have the biannual exception at like $5 million roughly, and then like a mid-level at like 12 if they get their numbers right, which I think they will. So I'll throw 2 names at you beyond that.
Yeah, who do you got?
Spencer Dinwiddie, point guard,
not bad,
just class player, and Jonas Valanciunas, who I don't think is going to have a robust market, and who, by the way, would fulfill everything that we have said that Post needs to do. Here's a guy who actually does those things in terms of putting an ass
real
in
center.
Somebody,
he's an old school center. Yeah, he's a big-bodied real center.
Where his elbows are on his body. Let's put it.
Yeah, I like him. What do you think of him, Frank?
I like him as a player, but sometimes, without, I assume, trying to be stubborn, he's stubborn. And the Warriors, they pride themselves on being one of the smartest teams in the NBA. Both defensively and offensively. I also seen Valanciunas get upset when he doesn't get the ball. The Warriors are not going to come down and just feed him the ball inside every time. They're going to expect him to do a lot of different things. So he's a talented guy, but he would have to make some concessions, and they would have to have some conversations about what his role is going to be with the Warriors for it to work.
We, by the way, we started off. I titled this Niners stream, so there's a lot of people want to, are expecting us to talk Niners, and we are. We're going to talk some Niners. But it's NBA draft night, and I wanted to start with the draft and then go to the Niners. So if you're here for the Niners, try to be patient with us through the Warrior dialogue. We're only going to talk basketball for a little bit more. I mean, we'll get into it, but I want to get into some Niners as well as we go. But what stood out to you guys about the first round? I mean, the Hawks took the kid from France, Rasachier or whatever, number one. Yeah, I mean, to me, I mean, this, the top, I thought first of all, I haven't seen all these guys, but to me, the guy who went second, Alex Sarr, looked better than the guy who went first. And the guy who played at Kentucky, Reed Shepherd, he actually looked pretty good to me as well, even though he's got a 40-inch vert. He can shoot the ball. I watched Kentucky. He was really good for them, but he's kind of not NBA length. You know what I mean? To go third overall with that limited of length was surprising. I kind of like Stephon Castle, who went to San Antonio at 4, and he's favored right now to be the NBA Rookie of the Year. I liked that pick a lot. I thought it was interesting that Memphis went with Zach Edey at 9, even though I'm not a big Edey fan, but I thought that was interesting. I like the fact that Sacramento got a nice player from Providence, Devin Carter.
Yep.
But I wanted to see Sacramento go with the kid from Sacramento, Jared McClain, who I really liked from Duke, who can really shoot the basketball. He went 16. I thought the Lakers got a steal at 17 with Dalton Connect. I thought New Orleans, the 7-footer from Misi, Eves Misi. I thought that was a really nice addition for the New Orleans. But if you said to me, best pick in the first round, this is the only time I think I would ever say this in the history of the NBA draft. I think the best pick in the first round was the last pick of the first round. I thought the Celtics drafting Baylor Shireman out of Creighton was a phenomenal pick. This guy is one of the best shooters in all of college basketball. To me, I would say if you haven't seen him, he's a poor man's Klay Thompson. He's a 6'7" 2 guard who's absolutely pure. His shot is dead eye. He's awesome in the mid range. He went to the Chicago pre-draft. He lit it up. He absolutely lit it up. And he was supposed to go end of round 2, I guess because of athletic limitations, but he went end of round 1 to Boston. But the rich get richer. They're the NBA champions. And in my opinion, they got a rotation player of note in Shireman. I love him. I think he's going to be terrific. Give me your guys' takeaway either on Shireman or who you guys thought was the big winner in round 1.
I thought Sacramento did a very good job. I thought Devin Carter was the best player in this class. And
really?
I can project Devin Carter is just out there winning basketball games. He is a culture shifter, a game changer. He doesn't need to give
me a player comp. Who's the player comp to Devin Carter?
That's a great question. Let me think on that one for a little bit.
Eric Bullock.
He's a 2-3. He's not the shooter that Bullock is, right? No. But he's a better athlete.
No, Eric Bullock played for Providence also back in the day.
Bullock.
Oh, Eric Bullock. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Eric Murdoch. I'm sorry.
Eric Murdoch. Okay. Yeah. I was going to say, why isn't I?
Listen, it's all over my head, so I'm just going to nod and say yes.
Eric Murdoch. Okay.
Listen, there's not a clear comp that immediately jumps to mind, but there's a grit to him. There's a tenacity. His dad played, high level basketball. And I think he led the Big East in rebounding and kind of can score from all 3 levels. Larry, his dad
had a beautiful pink suit. I loved Martha. What was the interviewer's name? Martha
Monica McNutt.
Monica. She's like, you guys look like what's
gender
it called?
Reveal party.
Yeah, gender reveal. You guys look like a gender reveal couple because he had the baby blue suit on and the dad had the pink suit on.
It's a shame he forgot his shirt somewhere, but listen, if you really want to take away here, instead of me having
it's a good look on Brigitte Nielsen. I mean, what do you mean?
Listen. There's Far cry. Instead of me pulling Devin Carter comps out of my ass, Larry, let's just get this takeaway. This draft sucked. These guys are not. I mean, and you know what? I kind of feel bad. I kind of feel bad for them because it feels as if this is the remnant of the COVID year. Like these are the guys who were most affected, where kind of their college careers were just getting started or whatever. Those critical developmental years, like 3-4 years before you go into the NBA draft, like that's a critical year, I think is what we found out. And you hear the 2025 class is absolutely loaded. I'm very, very much looking forward to looking into that come June of next year and not a second sooner.
Frank, what stood out to you in round one?
First and foremost, Devin Carter is a solid pick. He won't be a flop. He'll be a good NBA player.
High floor.
I think Dalton Connect, man.
To the Lakers. He's a scorer. He's a little older, but I mean, wow.
Man, listen, that dude is going to play some really good basketball next year. I think Sack should have taken him, to be quite honest with you.
Really?
Yeah, I do, because I mean, they got Harrison Barnes and
Keegan Murray, kind of the same ball game there.
Dalton Connect is a player. This dude is athletic. He can shoot.
Yeah.
He's 6'7". I mean, he's good.
He was awesome.
Yeah,
you don't
really
think JJ Redick's going to do something good with that white guy who can shoot?
Oh,
I mean,
my
come
God.
on. I don't know if he could have a better head coach.
That impressed me. I also thought that Minnesota did pretty well. I mean, you know what I'm saying? When you look at a team.
Who did Minnesota get?
They got Shannon, the kid who had the challenges off the court.
And
Dillingham. Dillingham is a good player.
Dillingham.
I mean, he didn't really fit in San Antonio, and it was clear he's really not Pop's kind of guy. And Castle can kind of be a ball distributor, but Rob Dillingham can play. And Minnesota needed a point guard to work with Conley Jr. And Shannon is a wild card. Shannon could be a guy who averages, 15-plus points a game in his career. So I thought they did pretty well. And I thought my Knicks did well.
Knicks did well.
I thought my Knicks
they got the guy Pacome Dadiet. They got Kolek, who they say can't read. I don't know. I'm not sure about that. But Kevin McCullough.
Oh, yeah.
And they got the big guy, Ariel Hookporty, the international big man who's about 250 pounds, 260.
Yeah, so those are some
that's not bad.
I thought. Yeah. No.
They'll stash most of those guys. The Knicks did some really good stuff too with sort of pick arbitrage, and they picked up 5 second-round picks from the Thunder for like pick 23 or something. I mean, that's just
I'll tell you
really good. That's really good work because of the new CBA. Second-round picks are worth their weight in gold. Yeah,
well, and they're the way the draft is right now. You could get better players in round 2 than round 1. I mean, I think this draft is going to show that in 5 years. Here, who I thought won. I loved what Utah did. They got Cody Williams at the 10th pick, and then they took Filipowski from Duke at in the top of round 2.
Yeah.
I
liked Filipowski's girlfriend.
I didn't see her. I didn't see her.
Filipowski sounds like an NBC special or something though, man. That's a crazy story, dude.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, Utah was the worst possible place for him to go based on some of the credence of that.
I mean,
story.
It's kind of creepy. I don't know if you know about it.
No, I don't. Fill me in. I like creepy.
Well, basically, this young man apparently is estranged from his family, and they're kind of blaming his girlfriend for it. I don't know if it's true or not. She's like 7 or 8 years older than him. I mean, can you imagine being in college and being estranged from your family?
No, that needs to be,
there's a whole Mormon grooming thing there that's in play. Man. It's a hot mess, Larry.
It really is.
So at least he's going to Utah. That should alleviate it.
Well, okay, so but I'll tell you this. I also like San Antonio. They got they got Castle with the 4th pick, and that Spanish point guard they got Juan Nunez is real. I
like that guy.
That guy's real, and they got Harrison Ingram, who Frank, you were talking about him maybe as a sleeper to the Warriors. Right. He started at Stanford, finished at Carolina. Ingram's pretty good. I mean, he shot almost 39% from 3-point range as a junior. After hitting 32% his first 2 seasons. So he's coming on. So I like what San Antonio did. I thought Sacramento was interesting. I mean, they got Devin Carter, then they traded Did you see they made a trade and they picked up? Was it Jaden McDaniels?
Yes.
And did you see him on camera being informed that he was a King? They're like,
No.
yeah, you got traded to the Kings. Like, really? I couldn't believe it. But
Wow.
I kind of like that from Sacramento. The other team I thought did great. I thought 76ers getting Jared McCain at 16 and then the UCLA kid from Nigeria, Adam Bona, at 41. Bona is awesome, man. I mean, you're talking about a 40-inch vertical. The guy runs like the wind. He's a dunker. He's a finisher. He's a lob threat. I like Adam Bona. I thought, and on Jared McCain, I thought Philly had a tremendous draft. And then I said I liked what the Knicks did a little bit as well. But the team who I think really did well beneath the radar is Houston. They took Reed Shepherd 3, and he looks like he's going to be at worst a rotation player, and he looks like a pretty good player. Then I thought they made one of the best trades in the entire draft. They traded the 44th pick in the second round of the Hawks for AJ Griffin.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a good move.
AJ Griffin is what they got out of the 44th pick of the second round. I loved AJ Griffin at Duke. He was the Hawks' first round pick. 2022? He can shoot. He's athletic. To get him for pick 44, I thought, Reed Shepherd and AJ Griffin, that's pretty good. The Rockets have a nice little core going there.
Yeah, I look at their second unit. Their second unit could be a starting unit. They got a real good chance of being in the top 6 next year. They are talented.
They're coming.
Oh yeah,
they are coming. Houston's
They're
coming
good.
for sure.
No doubt.
What did you think of Bronny to the Lakers? Is Bronny something or is Bronny nothing? They said he's a 6'2" guy, but then now he's really a 5'10" guy. And I know he had heart conditions. And I'll tell you the other thing that kind of nauseated me about the draft coverage. Now, first of all, there was an ABC coverage with Bob Myers, Stephen A., and Kevin Adondi, I think. And then there was an ESPN coverage with Malika Andrews and that other girl who's tremendous. I forget her name.
I legitimately don't know her name, but my one takeaway from the draft coverage was
awesome.
That woman knows what she's talking about. You should have her talk more.
Yeah, she's a college basketball player. That's why. And she's really good.
I don't know. Right? Was that a Bumake?
No.
I'll look it up. I'll give you a name.
Her name was Andrea. Andrea something.
Yeah, Andrea.
But,
played at Tennessee.
She was really impressive.
Yeah, she played at Tennessee. Yeah, she's a really good player, and she's she's her analysis is good.
Yeah, she's solid.
I liked that, but the part of the draft coverage I was like, God, I was getting nauseated watching it, was when this entire panel, including Woj, was getting like downright indignant at the notion that anybody would say that, cry nepotism for Bronny going to the Lakers. And Woj was like, there's nepotism all over this league. And he's right. But we're talking about a 5'10" player who averaged 4 points a game in college, who, if his name's not James, there's no way he even gets invited to anybody's summer league team. I think Bronny,
he was a 5-star recruit, to be fair, and then he
wasn't
died
good this
time last year. But you want to give some deference to.
I think.
Yeah, almost had a heart. He had a heart attack. Is that what it was?
Yeah, he had a heart attack. He was like, he was down and out. So,
but I watched him in the Chicago pre-draft, and he wasn't terrible. No. But he's 5'10", and they're making it sound like, how dare anybody say nepotism? It's like,
no, yeah, it's obviously nepotism. It's just a question of, if you're Woj and your entire business is predicated on relationships, and you look at some of these front offices around the NBA right now, you better not come out against nepotism. That's how everybody in these NBA teams, the entire, I think NBA teams are run like family businesses. And guess what? Everybody's got a Fredo.
We got one in the chat here. It says, hey, what the hell? Why are you talking nepotism? Signed Kirk and Kent Lakeup. There it is right there.
That's right. Steve Kerr. Listen, I like Nick Kerr
Steve
a lot.
Kerr,
but
Johnny West.
His son coaches. Shit, the entire Warriors operation are sons of former NBA players, sons of guys who are currently on the team, or sons of guys who own the team. Mike Dunleavy Jr. Listen, I'm not saying he didn't get in on merit, but like,
third
Come
pick
on.
in the draft.
No,
Not a lot of new faces.
I mean, it's true, and I got friends who work in NBA circles, and their kids work in NBA circles, and I think Woj was trying to kind of take care of everybody, saying that, hey, nepotism is a part of this community, and it's not great, but it is what it is.
Yeah, these are our values.
I mean, think about it. Think about Woj's jobs and some of these other like insiders.
Yeah.
His job does not exist unless people pick the phone up and give him information before he goes live with it. I mean, he doesn't have a crystal ball. People giving him information. So, but I think what he was trying to do is this could go really bad for Bronny emotionally. He's only he's a young kid. And like you said, Larry, he's probably 6'1", 6'2". But guys are going to go after him, right? And he's not ready to be an NBA player. So emotionally, he could look really, really bad in front of his parents and so on and so forth. So I think Woj was trying to kind of give him a little support, but it was sanctimonious. I mean, everybody.
I mean, it was like, how dare you? How dare any of you bring up nepotism?
He averaged fewer than 5 points a game and is 6'2", and you can't name a single other person in the history of the NBA draft who has been drafted under those circumstances. But how dare you insinuate something else is happening?
Right. I mean, it's just like, how far up the ass of LeBron James do you have to be? I mean, it's like, it's shameless. I mean, it's absolutely shameless. I mean, if you want to say, hey, look, there are those out there that say it's blatant nepotism, and I understand where they're coming from. I disagree because of X, Y, and Z. That's how you frame that. You don't start lecturing the audience. Nobody better say it's nepotism. It's like, bro, how bad do you want to secure the connection to LeBron James? I mean, it was embarrassing. I was embarrassed for every guy and every person on that panel out there.
Larry, what's the thumbnail your kid's going to put on this one later?
Yeah, exactly. Somebody accused me of nepotism. Nepotism. That's how Kev got his start. Mm-hmm. Okay, couple last ones, and then we'll jump to some football. Is there any solution for Golden State? Give me a name, a plan, a path. Is it Jimmy Butler? Is it Paul George? Is it take it in the shorts? And do you re-sign Clay? I mean, supposedly I'm reading an article right here that Klay Thompson has a robust offer, that Orlando is preparing a big money offer to Klay Thompson, according to Matt Moore of the Action Network, that he says Orlando is willing to offer Thompson a 2-year deal worth $50 million. He turned down 2 years, 48 from the Warriors. He can start negotiating with other teams at 6 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. He's a 4-time NBA champion, but he's 34. He spent his entire career with the Warriors. But, all the good things have to come to an end. He averaged 17.9 this year, but only 39% from three. I say only. That's some guys would die for that, but for Klay, that's a regression. What do you think? Give me a name, thumbs up or thumbs down on Klay coming back, but give me a name. I mean, or is there a trade out there? Is there a signing out there? You guys have your own thoughts and sources, and Dieter, I know you're dialed in around the league. Give me a name. Give me something on the Warriors, anything. If you're a Warrior fan, you're watching this stream, before we switch and talk Niners, do you have anything for me? Can you throw me a bone?
I mean, logically, Paul George works, but Dieter just poured water on everything. So
they're shopping Wiggins, according to.
So it's not going to happen, but it makes sense. The Warriors have a devoid of talent. And, for them to go back up to where they were, I mean, they won 2 championships in a row, and they had Kevin Durant. They don't have that anymore. So the league's gotten better. They've gotten older, and they're not as good now. I would just say, be honest with the public. Bring Klay back. I think Klay deserves a 3-year deal. Personally, I don't think he's going to be happy signing for a less than what he assumes to be a market value deal. That could cause a whole lot of problems. If the Warriors don't have Klay, they're not going to be as good. They're going to be even worse. So it's kind of a cluster, right now, man.
Yeah. Dieter, can you throw us a bone? You got anything? Is there anything that we can throw Warrior fans that would, that's interesting, or that, that could give us some insight into where they're going here? Because, I mean, they attacked this draft like they were set, and they're not set, and that's frustrating to watch. So I'm watching this from afar, going, "What the fuck? I mean, what are we doing here, guys? What's the plan? Do they have a plan, or is it just let's save Joe money and roll out the same crew next year?"
I mean, that's a plan. That's what they're doing.
That's a plan.
Listen,
is that the plan?
Yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan. That's the plan, because there is clearly no other plan that has come to pass, which would have had to have shown some serious legs over the last 48 hours to 72 hours. And I haven't heard a goddamn thing. Now, that could speak specifically to me, and people more well-sourced actually know what the hell's going on. But every now and again, I fall into one.
Dieter.
Every now, whatever you do, we're making this big deal. Just don't tell Dieter about it. I'm sure that's top of mind and priority for everybody. Listen, I think the Warriors are aware of their circumstance. I think that you can make the argument that without the Draymond Green drama of last year, the Warriors are 4 or 5 wins better than they were, or this upcoming year than they were last year. And that puts them in a much different position given how bunched up the Western Conference is. Does it do them any favors in the playoffs? Probably not. But I'm in total agreement. You can't lose Klay Thompson because you have no reasonable way to replace Klay Thompson. Whatever you think Klay Thompson is, he's better than 0. Mm-hmm. And that's the equation at play here for the Warriors. Do you want Klay Thompson or do you want nothing? And they're going to want Klay Thompson, not just for the sentimentality of it all, but because, as you said, he still shot almost 40% from 3, and that was a shitty year for Klay Thompson. I don't worry at all about them not meeting Klay where he needs to be met with his contract demands. The 3rd year, here you go. They gave it to Draymond, or it was a 4th year for Draymond, but they'll give it to Klay. They just need to have a reason to do it. If he wants more money, come in with an offer. The Warriors are still under the impression, I can say with certainty, that they will get a right of refusal to any contract Klay Thompson would sign with another team. So while he is an unrestricted free agent and he never has to call the Golden State Warriors again, he will call the Golden State Warriors, or rather his representatives will, to say, hey, Orlando did in fact come in with this 2-year, $25 million a year deal. Can you do anything for us on top of that? His preference is to stay in Golden State, despite what his Instagram passive aggressiveness might indicate. He's testing the market, and the problem he's going to find is that the market is not very interested in him. There's 5 or 6 teams that actually have salary cap space. There's only 2 of them that he would actually want to go to, and both of those teams are not terribly interested in Klay Thompson because they get to pick whomever they want. One of those guys might even be Paul George when it's all said and done, and I ultimately think you got to keep an eye on that with Philadelphia. But they have the mid-level. They have the biannual exception. I think they're going to roll it back with slight augmentation, and you might not like it, and frankly, it might not work. But the other thing everyone's got to keep in the back of their minds here is when they waive Chris Paul tomorrow, you're going to say they didn't get anything for him. Jonathan Kuminga is extension eligible before the season starts. I don't agree with this number. I don't like this number, but Jonathan Kuminga is a $30 million a year player in the NBA based on the market. So that's who's replacing Chris Paul's money on the books. And by the way, if he's about to be a $30 million a year player and you're bringing back Klay at $25 to $30 million and you still got Steph and you still got Draymond and you still got Wiggins, someone else is going to have to go down the line too, probably Wiggins, because of this second apron and first apron and all of the onerous limitations that are put on teams that go over the luxury tax like the Warriors have year in and year out. It got real serious. The NBA effectively has a hard cap now. And I don't think it's going to be as bad as it will be made out to be just because it will be, quote unquote, boring. Because the West is so tight. And while I think Oklahoma City is the real deal, Minnesota down, I'm not saying the Warriors would beat them, but I'm also not betting against it either.
I mean, one of the things, though, is like they could solve the problem is their players play better. I mean, yes. Wiggins, how about playing better? How about going back to 22? What's Wiggins, 29, 30? I mean, he's
Yeah.
still a very young player. And we look at him, Wiggins has like 3 seasons within one every year. He has one that's okay. He has one that's just god-awful. And then he'll have a season for about 20 games in which he'll look like a damn all-star. So
that's right.
I mean, you're right. Theoretically, they could be a decent team with minor changes on the fringes, but everybody has to have a great year. And, that's one of the unknowns that we don't have. So, yeah, I mean, and what about GP2 playing an entire season? That hurt the Warriors.
I mean, to me, I've never been like less enthused about an upcoming season than I am right now. The one rumor I did see, Wiggins for DeJounte Murray. Can that happen?
No, because you just saw what Mikal Bridges got. Mikal Bridges is a superior player to DeJounte Murray, in my opinion, but at the same time, they are players of the same class. Mikal Bridges has never made an all-star game. DeJounte Murray has. There's a lot of parallels between the two when we just talk about standing and stature on the NBA star hierarchy. And Mikal Bridges just got 5 first-round picks from the New York Knicks. And Andrew Wiggins is somebody whose contract is so toxic, even with the team friendliness of it all, that you probably have to attach a first-round pick to get rid of that contract.
Wow.
So it's going to take 3-4 first-round picks to get DeJounte Murray plus Andrew Wiggins. If I'm Atlanta, I'm saying, Jonathan Kuminga, come on down. We'll pay you the $30 million a year. So now the Warriors are going all in on DeJounte Murray, which, by the way, is separate from it all. I like DeJounte Murray as a fit for the Warriors, but the cost is going to be far too high, not just in players, but in draft picks. And basically the Warriors would be all in on DeJounte Murray forever and ever. And pretty clearly, as we've seen in both San Antonio and now Atlanta, this is not a guy who can be an ace for your team now or in the future. I don't know if Kuminga can be, but at least you can talk yourself into the possibility of it. And to not have any first-round draft picks once Steph, Clay, and Draymond go, oh boy, that's a dangerous ball game.
Well, the reports are the Warriors are aggressively shopping Wiggins in trade talks, and we'll see if anything comes of it. Last hoop question, then we'll switch over to Niners. Zach Edey, my daughter's boyfriend went to Purdue undergrad, and so I've got to hear a lot about Zach Edey.
Mm-hmm.
Zach Edey this and Zach Edey that. And I just thought the guy was kind of a big marshmallow, but he played well in the tournament. They got to the championship game, and then it just didn't work out. Connecticut was too much. Is Zach Edey, he went in the top 10. He went 9th overall. He went to Memphis. Zach Edey is he going to be great, good, a bench warmer, or bounced out of the NBA? I mean, to me, I think you could make a compelling argument for really any of those options with Edey. I think they're all on the table. I at first I thought this guy's not NBA, but then you're looking at him, you're like, wait, this guy's 7'4", 7'5". He's pretty skilled. So he's probably got to be in the league somehow, but he just seems so freaking slow. What do you guys think? Is Zach Edey, is he a great player, a good player, a starter, a backup, or bounced from the NBA?
He's a 10-year NBA player. That's what he is. And
10-year NBA player.
And I think he was drafted too high. But when you look at some of those cats that went to Carolina, those Duke guys, I mean those guys hang around. And all you got to do is make 3-4 fouls a game, and you're good. So his thing is, if he's on the court and little 6'1" guards are laying him up off the basket, then they'll get his ass out of the league fast. If he's willing to pound people and be somewhat intimidating and make layups, he'll be around for a decade. I think he probably should have been drafted 25 as opposed to 9, but there's no reason why he can't play at least 10 years in the NBA.
The question with a big man, especially one who is more of a traditional center, is always going to be how well they can play drop coverage in the pick and roll. Mm-hmm. And there are guys who get exposed and there are guys who can hold their own. Right. And that's the difference between being on the floor for 10, 15 minutes a game or being a starter and somebody who can close games in the NBA. I mean, you even have the question about the reigning defensive player of the year, the 3-time defensive player of the year, and Rudy Gobert. Can he handle playoff high pick and roll? Here we go every single every single time down the floor. And I would make the argument that he can up until he couldn't. Mm-hmm. And that's when Minnesota went out in 5 games. So Edey has a lot more physical limitations than a Rudy Gobert. He doesn't jump as high. He doesn't move as fast. He's not as fluid with his hips. I would much rather have Rudy Gobert. That's a very high bar. And I definitely don't think that this guy's just the next Boban, where he's just out there somewhat of a sideshow that they put in garbage time. I think that he went to the absolute perfect spot for him based on the fact that they already have in Memphis Jaren Jackson Jr. And Jaren Jackson Jr. At one point somehow inexplicably won Defensive Player of the Year, but he did it because Steven Adams was doing a lot of his work for him and actually playing center, and Jaren Jackson Jr. could come in with weak side blocks and get pile up all these steals and stats. Edey is not Steven Adams. Steven Adams was a dramatically underrated player. I think he's actually on the Rockets now, but that's neither here nor there. I think that they want Edey to do somewhat of that same thing. Hold the paint, be strong as hell, easy to do when you're 7'4" and weigh 330 pounds while being skinny. And on the other side, let Jaren Jackson Jr. go out on the perimeter and play his faux Karl Anthony Towns game with his nasty ass jump shot and just put an ass in somebody and get offensive rebounds. I think it could work out very well for him. But you want to talk about boom or bust potential. Yeah. Everybody in this draft is a wild card. There's no bigger wild card than Zach Edey going 9. And I'm interested because Memphis is a team that obviously had a disaster last season, but before that was a perennial in the mix squad. And with Desmond Bane taking a step forward, Gigi Jackson was a revelation for them last year out of Arkansas. They got some players. They got some players. Ja Morant coming back. He's an MVP candidate year in and year out. Marcus Smart backing him up. They got some dudes in Memphis. And if Zach Edey hits at all, he really fills a gap for them and makes them another team that the Warriors are going to have to worry about in the race to get one of those 10 spots in the West, where there's about 13, 14 teams that can reasonably get one.
It's funny.
What did you say? What did you say, Frank?
Memphis, it's all toughness. I play basketball. I play against these guys. I mean, this guy is 7 foot, whatever. If you can absorb the physicality, you can get a job. I mean, Olin Polynice played 13, 14 years in the league. I mean, Robin Lopez played 30. I mean, Zach Edey is as good as those guys. This is a different era, but I've watched him play. He dominated college basketball. That's right. But you got to want to play the game.
Yeah, and it's also kind of about how, what kind of hands do you have? I mean, it seems like he gets the ball knocked out of his hand kind of easy. One last one, I said that was the last one, but on the hoops, but then I was surfing around and I see there's a story out by Dieter Kurtenbach from the Bay Area News Group.
Okay.
That guy I can't get that guy out of the way. It says Dieter Kurtenbach, does the Warriors GM Mike Dunleavy have the creativity the moment demands? You can find that online or go to the BayAreaNewsGroup.com. But Dieter, why don't you tease your article and just kind of sum it up for us? What was your general point on Dunleavy?
Well, me finding a general point is oftentimes a fool's errand. It's what we've been talking about when it comes to the Warriors, right? Like, what are they going to do? How are they going to get out of this rut that they are in as an operation? How can they do something big and bold and brash this offseason to get Larry to feel something other than malaise about this team? That should be their number one priority. But Larry's not alone. I feel it a little bit. I'm a little bit more removed emotionally from it, but I feel it. It's not an exciting proposition bringing back Clay and signing someone to the mid-level, especially when you saw how they went out last year. So Mike Dunleavy, he has a signature moment already. He traded Jordan Poole for Chris Paul, but everybody in the league knew that both of those guys were available via trade. Everybody in the league knew that both of those guys had to go. They couldn't go back to the teams that they were on. And everybody in the league understood at the time that the Warriors were doing that so that they could dump the salary of Jordan Poole and get off scot-free. It wasn't a basketball trade. It was a financial trade. That is not a creative move. And ultimately, we haven't seen anything in Mike Dunleavy's tenure, which is short, to show that he has some sort of genius, some sort of ingenuity, something that's interesting other than just going down the list and checking his boxes, which is very difficult to do. And his predecessor, Bob Myers, just went down the list and checked his boxes and put 4 rings on everybody's finger. So it's not to say that you can't be a quality GM by just being organized and disciplined and effective. But again, the Warriors are not in a position where the status quo makes anyone feel good. It doesn't make them a markedly better team. It doesn't turn them into a title contender. And frankly, the question that I was asking in the column is, I don't see how they don't just go into next year with more of the same. Now, I am not paid to build the Golden State Warriors roster as much as I would love to do that and as much as my hair would fall out if that did happen. Mike Dunleavy is. I'm hoping that he's a little bit more creative and insightful than I am on matters such as this. And I'm interested to see if he can pull off anything that comes out of left field for the rest of us that he's been working on for a while. So far, I don't get the indication that he has, but, all the more reason to give him credit if he does over the next 24, 48, and 72 hours, which is when something like this would have to go down.
Dieter.
What?
Yeah.
Dieter, know what creativity is, though?
What is creative? I love definitions of words that we all think we know. Like, legitimately,
okay.
This is one of my favorite things.
Okay, so creativity is Popovich picking the phone up and calling his guy, Brad Stevens, say, hey, Brad, we like each other, right?
Yeah.
Guess what? I'm going to send you Derek White for the 15th pick.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Pop. I appreciate it. All right, click. Okay, Pop drafts Rob Dillingham yesterday. We really want Reed Shepherd at 4. We can't get him. We got to draft this kid Dillingham because he's the most talented player at 8. Let me call Minnesota. Hey, Dell Demps.
Yeah.
Hey, Dell, remember me? The guy that got you in the league? Hey, Pop, yeah. Well, guess what? What do you think of Rob? I think you really like him. Okay, Pop, thank you.
That's right.
Do the deal and click. So I'm not sure Mike Dunleavy Jr. has the Rolodex right now to make all of these things happen. But
That's
oftentimes, that's what creativity looks like. Pop is the dean of the NBA. Some of these Connolly, these guys can get things done because they have these relationships.
It is amazing. The guys who are the architects are so valuable. And these, if I said to you, I'm giving you an NBA team and you can have any general manager in the history of the NBA build that team. Who's building it? You going with Rod Thorne? You going with Sam Presti? You going with Jerry West? You going with Nelly? Who are you going with if I say you can have any general manager to build your team? A lot of people would probably go with Jerry West. I think I'd go with Nelly just from the standpoint he drafted Nash and Nowitzki in the same draft.
Right.
Got Sprewell in the 20s, Hardaway in the teens.
He also had a system, right? He could draft to the system. We talk about this all the time when we do NFL stuff. Like, you got to, you get guys that fit what it is you're trying to do. Listen, the rules, this entire offseason has been about how the rules are changing. So it's hard to compare eras on the court. It's hard to compare eras when we talk about GMs because of the rules were different. I mean, you talk about, Jerry Krause in Chicago, he was operating under a completely different set of rules than even, he was when Tim Floyd was the head coach after the lockout. So it's a little bit of apples and oranges. I would probably go with Jerry West in his prime. No one saw the game better, in my opinion, than Jerry West. And I don't think that's just paying homage to a great man who recently passed and trying to give him his, he can't hear us. So it's not like,
I would go with
Nelly.
Nelly.
A little late on my end.
Nelly missed on the talent evaluation. Now, a lot of people helping him, but Nelly
I'll tell you this, man. It's pretty hard to make the case right now that you wouldn't want Brad Stevens in charge of your team today.
Yeah, he's great too.
He's doing good. I might take Ainge. I mean, it seems like
he's done an incredible job. Now in Utah. Sam Presti's doing a great job.
Yeah, I think.
Daryl Morey's about to do something. You want to talk about ingenuity? Okay, we're talking about Daryl Morey is out here. He's got 3 dudes under contract for next season. Okay. He's got all the salary cap space in the world, but he's got Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey and 2, basketball Paul. Those are his 3 players. And everybody else is an unrestricted free agent or someone they can waive with ease. you want to talk about creativity? He's got to build an entire basketball team from that base, and it's a hell of a base. He's got to build an entire basketball team over the course of one offseason. I'm fascinated to see how he does it, and it's not like it was by accident. This was all set up. So you talk about creativity and thinking. I think specifically, kind of going to your point with Pop's thinking 2-3 steps ahead. He's always ahead of the game when it comes to building his team. And I just haven't seen that from Mike Dunleavy. Maybe he was a step or two ahead when it came to getting off of Chris Paul's money. Credit to him on that. But I just haven't seen anything that it totally came out of left field and shocked me and showed that this guy is operating on any level beyond just checking the boxes, which, again, not everyone can do that. But for the Warriors, you need a little bit more right now.
I look at that Warrior war room, and it just looks like a miserable place to be. I mean, seriously,
you can feel it coming off.
It really
Joe,
looks.
Right?
It looks like get me the hell out of there. You got Joe walking around, looking like he wants to make all the decisions. Yeah. You got his two kids sitting there, playing GM because daddy's rich. Yeah. You got Dunleavy sitting there. You got some other people sitting around, and it just looks like a miserable place. It's like, here's a place where we won all these rings. Everybody thinks they know, a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. That's all I'll say. And it seemed like they got a bunch of guys in the room with a little bit of knowledge. And then obviously Joe's there. So it's like, you got to know two things. You got to know what you think, how good you think each player is. And then you got to think, what does Joe think?
That's right.
You know what I mean? Who does Joe like? And then do you want to keep your job? You got to agree with Joe probably. And if Joe's kid, I don't know. To me, it's like you're a self-made billionaire. Awesome. You buy a basketball team. Awesome. You want to make your kids, king makers and put them in the front office. Fine. But don't put them in the player personnel department. And
hey, man, they got Alan Smiley-Geach out of one of those kids. Cool.
Seriously. I mean, if we went down, go look up all the numbers of guys that the Warriors have drafted in this regime, and there's just a bunch of donkeys there. There's a bunch of bums. Jordan Bell and Patrick McCaw and all these guys. It's like. Smiley-Geach, I've got a vision. Alan Smiley-Geach. Mm-hmm. All right. Whoever
tell a story about Alan Smiley-Geach.
Whoever drafted Smiley-Geach should be fired. But they're not.
Because it's a kid.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. I will give you a full Smiley-Geach story.
What are your qualifications? I had lunch with Jerry West once. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, what do Joe Lacob's kids what really are they doing in the war room making basketball evaluations?
They're good tax
in reality. It's kind of an insult to people who have dedicated their life to basketball personnel evaluating.
What would Woj say right now, Larry? What would he be saying about this rant that you're giving?
I don't want to hear about any nepotism because those guys may call me tomorrow and give me an inside scoop that I can make money on. I don't know. I'm fine with hiring your kids, and I'm fine with putting them in a position of power. But when you make them the general manager,
what if they push you?
Bob Myers is gone because he's tired of those guys and tired of Joe.
Yeah,
I think. Don't you think?
Yeah, but I'm at your question though. I
don't know who they were pushing. They were pushing Smiley.
No. Not only pushing them, but I'm like.
Who are they pushing? They're probably pushing this kid, Lindy Waters.
Sometimes. Like, you can be the dad, and you can be like, I don't know if this is a good idea, but it's like, yo, Dad, you're blocking me. You won't give me this opportunity. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah, but it's like what happens if your head scout, who's been doing this for 25 years, says, I like player X, and Kent says, you know what? I like player Y.
Go with your scout.
And then Joe says, you know what? I'm going to go with Kent. I like you, but I love him.
Yeah.
I
saw Succession. Who knows if he loves him?
Yeah,
that's debatable.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk a little football. And on that note, hold on. Let's talk a little Niners. And like that, we switch colors, and now it's a Niner show. Look at that. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about the 49ers. I did had Kev titled this one Kittle over McCaffrey, because there's an article out right now where Travis Kelce believes the Niners should be running their offense through his buddy, George Kittle. Nicholas McGee, who covers the NFL for A to Z Sports, wrote on Tuesday that Kelce, while appearing on Bussin' with the Boys, discussed beating Kittle and the Niners twice in the Super Bowl. Great. I'm sure it was a great episode. Kelce admitted that the goal is to win the Super Bowl and that he doesn't feel bad about beating Kittle's Niners. But Kelce said he would like to see his fellow tight end get more chances to impact games. Here's the quote from Kelce. He says, "I wish he would have had more opportunities to make plays, though. I do wish that," Kelce said. "I think the Shanahan offense can get kind of tied up in, it's Christian McCaffrey right now. It's Christian McCaffrey right now. It goes through him. They've got expletive talent all over the blank field on the offensive side. I think that offense runs best when it's going through 85, which is obviously George Kittle." What do you guys think? Do you think the Niners offense would run better and be more efficient and more productive if they ran it through Kittle more instead of using Kittle as kind of a blocker and not a primary piece, more of a secondary piece? What do you guys think? Is Kelce onto something there?
I think there's a legitimacy to that. In first off, it's a good point by Like what's Travis Kelce, noted football historian, gonna say other than I think they should give it to the tight end more? Yeah, no shit. I'm not sure he's considered the alternatives. I'd like to know. Okay, so there have been 2 years where you could make the argument that they ran it through Kittle. The offense was run through Kittle. And those were 2018 and 2019. Obviously, 2019, that worked out pretty well for everybody. 2018 was an inarguably better year for Kittle statistically. And Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't there for but 2 games. But the 49ers sucked. He got his numbers. Nick Mullins got his numbers. 49ers couldn't do anything. And that was a team that everyone was expecting to make a leap that year. And they just didn't. And it's not to say that that's George Kittle's fault. It's just to say that the tight end being the primary option, that works when you're Travis Kelce and you're a glorified wide receiver who doesn't block.
Who's flexed out, and he's basically...
That's right. You're a Y wide receiver, hombre. Hell, sometimes you play Z and X. They put you all the way out there. You're a wide receiver. So you're thinking like a wide receiver. George Kittle's an actual tight end, meaning that he is attached to the line of scrimmage. And so, yeah, I think, of course, tight end bias, everyone's going to want their guy to help out. You can't run. In some ways, they do run their entire offense through George Kittle. It's just not giving him the ball. They're running behind him excessively. And then he obviously is an important part of the passing game. But it's just apples and oranges when you're talking about a Kelce and a George Kittle, because George is actually playing the position of tight end, and Travis Kelce is just cosplaying as a tight end because, well, he's big and white and not terribly fast. And so, every now and again, they'll throw him on the line to pretend he's not a wide receiver. I find it disingenuous, especially too, hell yeah, you go behind Christian McCaffrey. Hell yeah, you give it to Deebo Samuel every snap. And guess what? George Kittle's a pretty important part of all of those yards that those guys have gotten out of the backfield and getting flexed around. Those guys are certainly deserving of being the primary options when Deebo was, and then certainly when Christian is now. But this offense doesn't work without George Kittle in general. So the notion of running through, that's semantics. To George Kittle is as valuable as any player in football to his team. And Travis Kelce should have some respect for that, because he's as important to any player as any player in the NFL to his team. Where would Patrick Mahomes be without 87?
I think Kittle's a good receiver, but not nothing crazy. I don't think,
as we see in the red zone a lot, right?
Do I think Kittle is like if I talk about receiving tight ends, I'd name 35 guys before I ever mentioned George Kittle. Not now, not current, not active, but I'm just saying historically.
Oh yeah,
he's not. I don't think a George Kittle is a great receiver. I think a George
Tony
Kittle
Gonzalez.
is a passable receiver. He's not Antonio Gates he's not one of those guys. He's a damn good tough guy run blocker who doesn't let go of you and keeps driving his feet. James Foster
right
says
tackle. He's effectively their right tackle.
Yeah, he's like an offensive tackle. James Foster says the offense literally runs through Kittle. I'll tell you the one thing I'd like to see more of, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, but even though the Niners have all these passing weapons, I'd like to see them get into a game or two a year where they just run the hell out of it. I mean, I just feel like Shanahan gets bored. He doesn't Harbaugh, if he ran the ball and you couldn't stop it, you got more of the run until you could stop it. That's Shanahan right. Could literally run, 70% of the time in the first quarter, average 5.2 a carry. And he's throwing the ball all over the yard in the second quarter.
Yeah. He
doesn't stick with it. He's looking he goes into a game saying, I want offensive balance. Mm-hmm. At the end of the game, I want 22 runs and 22 passes. And that's what I want. But what happens if you're running for 5.4 a carry on the first 12 carries? Why pass the ball a bunch? Why not just run it down? And not only that, you got CMC, you got Mitchell, you got Mason. Now you got Garendo. I love this kid, Cody Schrader. He's the real deal. Dieter loves him going back to Missouri. They got like 5 running backs. And their line is a better run blocking line than it is a pass blocking line.
That's right.
And they have success in some of these games running the ball, and then poof, Kyle gets bored, and now it's time to throw it.
That's not his makeup.
One beef with Kyle.
That's not his makeup.
He likes balance, and he likes to throw the rock. I would say, if more than anything, I think Shanahan would probably have a little bit better resume right now if he just ran the ball. I mean, the fact that the Niners won their first game this year under Shanahan, that they didn't lead in the fourth quarter. Like, if they didn't lead going into the fourth quarter under Shanahan, I believe they didn't win any games until this year. They won one game where they were down in the fourth quarter. So I don't know. To me, it's not about
two.
They pass it through Kittle. It's about when you're running the ball and you're dominating running it. Keep running it. Keep running it.
They did that. They did that in 2019. We all remember the playoffs then. They just ran it down Minnesota and Green Bay's throat.
But they haven't done it recently, and I know that means they have credit. They have belief in Brock Purdy, and that's great.
Yeah.
But think about how much better Brock Purdy would be if you had a game or two where you ran it 65% of the time and asked him to just throw a few passes here and there, and they have the backs to do it.
It's incumbent upon Brock Purdy in many ways to ensure that that's possible, because what defenses will do, and this is pretty logical, they'll just basically say, we're going to totally commit to stopping Christian McCaffrey. And that means you're getting one-on-ones on the outside, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, whomever, Jennings, like, it doesn't matter. But we're selling out not to get after the quarterback and try to cloud his vision or anything like that. We're selling out to stop a running back. And we're going to effectively double team him on every play. That's how a lot of teams went into games against the 49ers, and they dared Brock Purdy to beat him. And he did a lot. And so it's incumbent upon other teams to start giving Brock Purdy the respect that he's probably already earned, but ultimately it hasn't manifested yet with opponents' game plans. It's incumbent on Purdy to basically demand that teams continue to be honest in how they defend the 49ers in the passing game. Because I can agree with you that Kyle Shanahan gets away from it, but Kyle Shanahan will always, every single time, do what he thinks to be the smart thing. If you're committing 8 to the box, he's going to pass it every single time. He just does. He does not care. He couldn't do it with Jimmy. He couldn't. Now he has he is going to pass it every time. If you throw 8 guys in the backfield and play cover 4 and have just blanket the field with coverage, he's going to run it every time. And ultimately, it's what the opponent is giving Kyle Shanahan that he's taking time and time again. And over the past 2 years, since they got Christian McCaffrey, opponents have been petrified of them running the ball with Christian McCaffrey. And so they're giving them the pass, which has resulted in MVP numbers for both McCaffrey and Brock Purdy. That's at least how I see it.
What do you think, Frank?
I I think part of it is what Dieter is saying, because I think that Shanahan's a smart guy and he approaches the game of football from an intellectual perspective, going back to his dad. That's what his dad did. Now, I also think that it's a mentality, and I would tend to agree with you in some respects. Larry, growing up in New York, watching Bill Parcells. Bill Parcells didn't give a shit if the lines were unbalanced. He didn't care. He's like,
right.
we're going to run the football, and you're not going to stop us. And if guess what? If we average 3.3 yards per carry and we got 3 downs, we're going to get a first down. I can remember O.J. Anderson and Little Morris just literally
Joe Morris,
literally averaging 3.4 or 5 yards a game and just methodically working themselves down the football field. So I would agree with you. Sometimes you want to make a point that we can pulverize this defense regardless of what alignment they have. And we really haven't seen that from Shanahan. So while I think that from a strategic perspective, Shanahan's great, but I can appreciate your perspective when you mention a guy like a Jim Harbaugh. Well, he's the same way. I don't give a crap what you're doing. This is what we're going to do to you. It's beautiful football to watch. It's what I'm used to, and it's really what I like to see, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, and not every week your quarterback, some weeks your quarterback's not going to have it. Some weeks the 50-50 ball is going to go to the defense. If you're running the ball with success, man, keep running it. It wouldn't be a live stream if I didn't talk about Brandon Ayuk.
What do we have to report, Larry?
I talk more about Brandon Ayuk than I talk about my wife and children.
That's because nepotism's not an issue for you.
But before we get to the Brandon Ayuk portion of tonight's stream, which includes Frank Red and the great Dieter Kurtenbach in the house, and of course we're brought to you by Pig in a Pickle, I've got to share the screen because this is just an awesome highlight from Marco Luciano. Look at this Luciano bomb. This is Luciano in AAA. Look at this swing. This is beautiful. Now I'm a Giants fan, so you gotta give it to me because I'm a Giants fan. Here it is. Marco Luciano in AAA. Look at this swing.
Whoa.
Yeah, he got a hold of that one.
That is crushed.
That was Gary Matthews, man.
And look at it. He's just barely running.
Well, it's about 135 degrees in Las Vegas today where they're playing that baseball game. And they're playing apparently while the sun is up. So,
wow.
Yeah.
What this kid, I mean, once again, we'll see it one more time here. Boom.
Imagine if that guy could play a lick of defense.
And he didn't get it. He didn't get it all. Oh, no. My goodness. Oh, my goodness.
I can pull up the exit velocity on that if you give me a minute.
That was awesome. That's a little Marco Luciano. Dare to dream, Giants fans. Maybe the future. MF says Larry Ramos. Wait a second. He says Ramos is going to start the All-Star game. I did a video on it last week. I said Ramos should start the All-Star game in Globe Light Field or whatever in Arlington for the Giants. I love watching me some Ramos, and now he's playing center field almost every day. Okay, Brandon Ayuk. Why don't we start? I don't know. As far as the latest on Brandon Ayuk, the Niners had a meeting with Ayuk. They supposedly got things off their chest, and supposedly it was, by everybody, all reports say it was a good meeting. The two sides still remain. They're not on the same page. They're still at a standstill. I don't know if it's an impasse, but they're at a standstill in contract negotiations. Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network reported both sides, quote, said things that needed to be said, and there are no current plans for a trade of Ayuk at this time. So that is the latest. The other interesting Ayuk angle is former GM and a good friend of mine, Randy Mueller, went in depth and did an analysis of Brandon Ayuk contract negotiations. And, he wrote an article in The Athletic. Of course, it's a former GM of the Saints and Dolphins. And he says the Niners have positioned themselves well by having receivers such as Debo and Juwan Jennings and now Ricky Pearsall under contract. And they also hold an edge over Ayuk when it comes to the amount of money he'd be paid without a new deal. Mueller wrote, Ayuk has the short straw. He's got a contract for 2024 that will pay him $14.1 million. And under the current CBA, holding out of training camp is not a viable option. If the 49ers wanted to play hardball, they could make Ayuk play for that and then franchise tag him in 2025. The tag for wide receivers is worth $21.8 million in 2024. It's projected to rise to nearly $25 million in 2025, which would put Ayuk around $39 million over the next 2 years. If he played this year on the fifth-year option at 14.1, and then next year $25 million on the tag, that would pay $39 million. He says, I'm not suggesting the 49ers should play hardball, but they could if they wanted to. That's leverage. Obviously, Ayuk's representation knows this. It sounds like, guys, that Ayuk wants Amon-Ra money. He signed for 4 years and 120 with the Lions. Randy Mueller wrote, the fly in the ointment for the Niners is Amon-Ra St. Brown's contract. He goes on to say most of the NFL, considers Ayuk a better all-around player than Amon-Ra, whose deal caused much backlash and back-channel conversations within the league. He says that's the one bit of leverage Ayuk has that might have some traction with the Niners brass. Because of that deal alone, they might have to go to $31 million per year. So what's going to happen? Mueller thinks that the Niners will strike a deal near the start of training camp, as they have multiple times with past free agents. He says, ultimately, I expect Ayuk would sign for about 30 to 32 million annually, with about 50 million fully guaranteed. That would give him something to hang his hat on. The question then becomes, do the 49ers value him that much more than their other options, even if that costs a bit more than they had budgeted? I think a deal will get done before camp starts, when time is of the essence. So why don't we start with Frank? Frank, you've been watching this Ayuk story percolate, I'm sure, listening to a little sports radio and following the headlines. What's your thought on the whole thing? Is you think the Niners ought to cave? Do you think they will? Do you think they establish a surplus, and you think that despite this report, they still may trade him? Is he worth signing for $30 million in your mind? Give me your Ayuk thought.
I think first and foremost, it should be honest. It should have, it seems like this meeting was the first time in which all parties had real conversations where some of the truth was coming out. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's okay for the organizations to say, this is what we're going to pay our wide receivers. And you might not like it, but this is our philosophy. And as a result, we're going to look for a trade. Now, you talk a lot about the 49ers kind of nibbling around the edges, seeing what was out there for Ayuk. And if that was the case, then they should have got a deal done if they don't really want to pay the guy. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm a St. Laurent, what's his name, on Detroit.
Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Right. St. Brown's guarantee, I think I remember, is it $75 million?
I 75 or 76, I think.
Yeah,
is that right, Dieter? What is it, Dieter?
I mean, it was public.
The fully guaranteed is actually shy. It's really only about a 2-year deal. They can get out of it after 2 years.
Well, that's the other thing.
What's the guarantee?
Fully guaranteed, and sometimes those things get reported differently.
My general takeaway on that contract was that it was shockingly unguaranteed, and it was kind of a disingenuous headline about the AAV being 28, 29, whatever it was, million, because not much of that was actually backed by guaranteed money. Whereas you just noted with Brandon Ayuk, he's guaranteed $14 million this year and like 24 next year. And hell, they tag him again, it's $30 million after. That's like $80 million right there if he just runs through it. But at the same time, those deals aren't guaranteed because they're tags.
My thing is, you got to have a market. Now, there was published reports that said that St. Brown's contract was X and this was guaranteed. Now Dieter is saying that it wasn't totally true. Let's get to the truth, because that's the negotiation as far as I'm concerned. If you got comparable wide receivers, right? You could talk about salaries, they can be cut, but let's get to the guarantee, And if I'm Ayuk, if there's a comparable guy,
Amon-Ra's fully guaranteed money is $34 million.
That's not a lot of money.
They say it's 77, but that's not fully guaranteed. And I can get into the minutia of the contract itself and some of this stuff. All this to say, 2026, he'll be 27 years old. His base salary is going to be $27 million, but they can cut him, and they only take $9 million on the cap. So,
how much is Ayuk's guarantee?
Ayuk doesn't have any guarantees.
No. I mean Debo. I'm sorry. When
Debo
wasn't it 40?
$41 million in fully guaranteed money.
Okay, that's a great starting point then. You know what I'm saying? He has to get at least $40 million guaranteed. You know, I mean, make a legitimate offer to Ayuk that's based on something tangible. You know, and you can point to Debo and say, you got a guarantee of $40 million. We're going to give you 42, 43, whatever the case. And we're not going beyond that. And we're going to help you work to get you out of here if you don't want to, agree to that.
Brandon Ayuk wants to get this thing done. Here's what he needs to do. He needs to get on the phone with his agent, and he needs to say, you need to call John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, and you need to demand a trade. And it's not to say that he will or he won't get traded. It's simply to move this thing along. I'll say this. Brandon Ayuk.
What do you do? Oh, God, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I mean, like Brandon Ayuk calling a meeting.
What do you think happened at the meeting was my question. What was the bad feelings you think was?
I think they all had a nice chat over, a nice piece of pie and some coffee. And then the 49ers went to their room after Brandon left, and they all laughed their asses off because they got him exactly where they want him. This is
I like the imagery with the pie and the coffee. Kind of reminds me of that Ben Stiller movie where he's like, you like pie? Did you ever see that movie where he's picking up the girl? He marries her, and then she's a freaking nightmare, and she's like singing all the way on the way to Cabo. And have you seen that movie with Ben Stiller?
Talking about what I can't remember.
And then he falls in love with the brunette on the beach instead. Oh, it's hilarious.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I know exactly what movie you're talking about.
She's like this beautiful dream girl, and then he marries her, and it becomes a nightmare.
And then Hank Azaria screws her in the boat. Is that the same movie?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
I know exactly what movie you're talking about. I've probably seen it twice. Couldn't tell you the name of it in a million years.
No. That one was.
Is that a different Ben Stiller?
That's a different one.
Schmuck?
I forget. But that's a Ben Stiller movie as well. His wife bangs the scuba instructor.
That's right.
On the honeymoon.
Yeah. What a scene. Okay.
That's not the same. Heartbreak. There it is. The Heartbreak Kid.
There you go.
Heartbreak Kid. And you're talking about Along Came Polly.
Along Came Polly is a classic film. Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Jennifer Aniston.
Something about Mary. I love that.
That's a great movie.
But Along Came Polly was fantastic. He's like he has Indian food. It upsets his stomach because he's got a small case of IBS, right, irritable bowel syndrome. So he goes back to Jennifer Aniston's apartment. He's like, do you have a bathroom? And she's got a tiny little bathroom right next to the kitchen. Whoa. Right next to the kitchen, and she's got a ferret and the whole thing.
Philip Seymour Hoffman in Along Came Polly, all-time performance. Let me give you a number here, real fast.
Yes.
Well, I'll give you two. A.J. Brown got $51 million fully guaranteed. I don't give a damn about any of this 26, 28, 29. The only numbers that matter are fully guaranteed monies on the contract.
Right.
A.J. Brown got $51 million fully guaranteed according to Over the Cap. Calvin Ridley just got 46.9 from the Tennessee Titans. There's your negotiation point. Hey, I'm Brandon Ayuk. You might not think that I'm the best receiver in the NFL, but I'm sure as shit better than Calvin Ridley, who just got 40. And if you don't think I'm better than Calvin Ridley, and we're not starting these negotiations above $47 million in fully guaranteed money, to quote the great film Slapshot, trade me right fucking now.
Right.
You're
right.
Here's the thing. I was looking at this stat, and this kind of changed my mind because there's a lot of people that will argue that Ayuk doesn't deserve the kind of money that maybe some of these other receivers do because of his usage, right? Because the Niners don't utilize him. But this was the NFL leaders in catches over 20 yards last season. Tyreek Hill led with 29, and CeeDee Lamb had 29, and Ayuk was. So those guys were tied for first, and Ayuk was second with 28. But Hill did it in 171 targets. Lamb had 181 targets, and Ayuk got his 28 receptions of 20-plus yards on 105 targets.
That's right.
So he's quite a bit more efficient as a downfield threat. And in some ways, I kind of feel like the Niners they're looking the gift horse in the mouth. They have literally their dream girl, in this case, dream wide receiver. They got their dream wide receiver, the wide receiver that blocks downfield with a vengeance.
That's right.
Takes the running game personally and wants to block, is fine not getting the ball as much as the other top receivers. Name me the game that Ayuk ran to anybody in the Niner media corps and bitched about not enough touches. He doesn't do that. He's a team guy. He's a team guy. He's a blocker. He's a tough guy. He's a productive guy. He's got great long arms. So even though he's 6'1", he plays like 6'4". I think he's got a great body as far as it will age well. I mean, if you pay him right now at 26 and you give him, he's gonna be fine going forward. I think his body's going to age better than Debo. I think he's got more durability than Pearsall. I think in a lot of ways, Ayuk is outside of Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. I think in some ways he's not a police blotter guy. He doesn't get in trouble with the law. He's a good guy. You don't got to worry about him. He's not out of shape and fat half the year. Debo gets out of shape. Sometimes you look at him and you're like, whoa, dude's bloated. Ayuk's ripped all year round. He's healthy. He's durable. They've got their dream guy. He's no nonsense. He's efficient. Sign this guy. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, Larry, stop. Parag is, I think, getting too much in his feelings and too much in his own personal space as far as how he's evaluated. Nobody is paying to see you, Parag. I realize you want to get a good deal done well, and I know you're going to pay your quarterback 60 times what you're paying him, so there's some urgency to get a good deal, but either you can afford this guy or you can't. And if you can't, trade him. And if you can, sign him. But this waiting to the 11th hour, pissing off your fan base, alienating your players,
no, it just doesn't.
For the good of a few bucks on the cap. Is it really worth that?
It is to them, because this is how they've always done business, Larry. Listen, we're all out here bloviating about something that doesn't need to get done for another 3-4 weeks at the very earliest.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's nothing. He missed mini camp.
What he's missed so far, non-issue.
Right. And honestly, he misses the first week of training camp, whatever. I mean, it's fine.
I agree.
There is a point. And ultimately, that's what the 49ers are thinking. Listen, every dollar that we're about to spend is important, because we're about to pay our quarterback out of our ears and double the price of beer just to make it happen. This is still a family business, all things considered, and the Yorks don't just give it away for free. So they're about to pay their quarterback more than they've ever paid a quarterback, relative to the cap, relative to inflation, anything. They're about to make Brock Purdy a very, very rich man. He could buy many tractors. And so they have to be judicious about how they handle this Ayuk thing. Now, are they going to go crazy about the difference between 28 and 29? I don't think so. But if Brandon Ayuk wants to be paid like Justin Jefferson, that's not a reasonable expectation. I'll say this about Brandon Ayuk. Niners fans want to get in on 27, 28, 30, 31. None of that stuff matters. It's the fully guaranteed money and how much you actually have to pay. The salary cap is not the NBA. It's not the NHL. This is not. There are so many ways to manipulate it in the NFL. To think about annual value is to miss the point. I'll leave that at that. I'll say this about Brandon Ayuk, and then I'll shut the fuck up. Because at a certain point, I get it. We're 2 hours in. I finally figured it out.
Hour and 48 minutes. We're only going for 12 more minutes. And we got 12 more minutes before we're going to bolt for the door.
Brandon Ayuk is, as everything you said, Larry, is accurate, not just on the field, but off the field. Brandon Ayuk, I have maintained in my conversations with him over the years, is a very sharp dude. He's not very outgoing. He's not a people person.
He's not an awesome interview.
No, but he is. And I have made an effort and made it a mission to try to get Brandon Ayuk to actually have a real conversation with me. And I've been able to do that a couple times. And he's a pretty damn sharp dude. I legitimately think that's working against him here. I legitimately think he might be just a little bit too smart to handle all this situation, because this is what is happening now with his contract. This is the realm of divas. This is the realm of brain dead morons who are out here making a fool of themselves left, right, and center. Attention, attention, attention. That's the only currency they know. Brandon Ayuk doesn't play that game at all. And now he's having to operate on a playbook that a lot of other divas before him have executed and gotten paid with. And it's not his personality, which is why you see this weird, TikTok video. Oh, they don't want me. It's why you see this meeting with the 49ers and the Instagram comments. This is not him. This is not his personality. He doesn't know how to play this game. He's not built for that game. He's built to play football and to be all the things that you said that are really positive and validate giving this guy this much money. And so I think that ultimately we're all wanting something new, flashy, shiny, interesting. We want something to happen because we are in a constant need for new in our media environment, in the information environment in the world. We all just want this thing over with because we can't just let it happen when it's going to happen. The Niners have no incentive to move this thing forward. Brandon Ayuk is under contract. The only person that he can hurt from here on out is himself. And the question is, when is he going to get serious, or his people are going to get serious, go to the table with a realistic offer that the 49ers can work with? To my understanding, there is no contract offer. Brandon Ayuk's throwing numbers out there. There's not even a contract offer that's signable. They haven't gotten down to the nitty gritty, and they didn't even have a real meeting the other day. It was a kind of a how you feeling thing. Let's just check in.
What do you think they had to clear when they said we got to clear the air? What do you think they had to clear the air about?
Brandon being bad at social media. And it was Brandon trying to clear the air with the 49ers and basically saying, hey, man, there's been a lot of stuff that I have put out there that's making, people think that I don't want to be here. I want to be here. And the 49ers like, yeah, we know, because we don't care about that stuff.
you know what, though, Dieter? I mean, I'm enjoying listening to your commentary. But playing football, right? And I didn't play at the NFL level, but I did play college football. And even at the NFL level, like you saw last year, you saw what happened to Philly, right? They lost 6 or 7 games. It can go bad really, really fast.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, people want to do professional football like it's fantasy football. No, these are real people with real emotions that are working together every day, talking to you as if you're being truthful and you on some bullshit. And I'm just saying that you got a job to do, management. Players want to get the best, the most that they can get. But at some point, you have to treat each other like humans. Yeah. And you can never lose that. So while Ayuk is going to lose financially more than anybody else, ultimately, if it goes real bad, but the whole organization and the team is affected because you do have a community and you do have a brotherhood. And I don't really want to lose that because we saw it in Philly. Most coaches would have been fired last year. Mm-hmm. So that's the downside of it.
Well, and it's a good point, but I'll bring it to this. The Niners also have to be cognizant of the fact that Brandon Ayuk is not the number one option in this offense. As exceptional as a wide receiver as he is, as much as he could be the number one option in this offense, the best players on this offense, let's just go down the line. Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, arguably George Kittle. We can have a conversation there. We can have a conversation about Deebo Samuel. Brock Purdy is about to get paid a shit ton of money. He also plays quarterback. That's just the offense. Fred Warner gets paid a lot of money. Nick Bosa gets paid a lot of money. And now you're saying the 49ers would be positing, at least for a year, by giving Brandon Ayuk everything that he wants, which he has every right to ask for, and totally understand why he's doing it. Shoot for the moon, you might land in the stars. But if he's asking for $31, $32 million a year, $30 million a year, whatever, $80 million, get fully geared, if he's asking for a number that is not commensurate with his output, and the 49ers just give it to him because they want this thing to be over and they want him to be happy, well, now they got to look around that locker room and say, this is the best player on our football team. This is the number one guy on our football team, and that's just an unrealistic thing to present to anybody.
And there's a realistic, this is a hard cap. This is a hard cap.
Yeah.
So at the end of the year, Mooney Ward's a free agent. Demo's a free agent. Banks is a free agent. If you pay Brandon Ayuk $32 million, and you're going to get Brock signed to whatever enormous contract he's deserving of, there's a very good chance that all three of those guys, both corners and your starting left guard, are all going bye-bye. If you can get Ayuk at your price, maybe you can keep one of those guys. That's kind of what it's about. So, I mean, you got to almost frame this differently for Niner fans, because Niner fans are always just like, pay him. It's not my money. Right. And but you don't get it. It's like, if you pay him, you probably can't pay Banks or Lenore or Ward. If you get him at your price, maybe you can keep Banks. Or maybe you can keep Lenore.
And there's also a very real situation where they say, oh, we are giving him $32 million a year, but it's phony. It's funny money. It's phony baloney. And it's in fact not guaranteed. And so Brandon Ayuk gets to go out there and present this, oh, well, I got paid so much money. It's like, dude, when the contract's over, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
And that's what matters.
Yeah. And believe me, these guys are very, very knowledgeable.
And like, Ayuk's smart enough to know that.
Yeah. He's
I
can
tell you firsthand, Brandon Ayuk, Amon-Ra St. Brown, I have always gotten the impression is a pretty sharp guy, but he did not sign a sharp contract with that little in fully guaranteed money. And no one's going to talk about that. He won the headlines. He got all the, Justin Jefferson's contract is shockingly get-outable after 2 years. Brandon Ayuk wants a 5-year term. He better make sure the 49ers have to pay him for at least 4 of those, no matter what. And ultimately, that's where my priorities would lie. I think Brandon Ayuk's smart enough, not to say that my priorities are always the smart one, but like in this situation, you're thinking you got one shot. Maybe Brandon Ayuk's good enough to get a second massive contract. There are very few guys in the history of the NFL that are non-quarterbacks that can say that. Maybe Brandon Ayuk's one of them. Probably not, just mathematically speaking. This is his one shot to make massive money. He needs to get as much of the money that the 49ers are going to say they're going to pay him in the contract release, email and, NFL.com ticker and all that shit. You need to get as much of that 100 something as possible, because that's ultimately what you're really being paid. It's not the 30 or 25 or 35 million a year. It's the fully guaranteed money. And ultimately, I don't think Brandon Ayuk's done himself any favors with this social media stuff over the last couple of days, because if I'm the 49ers, I'm sitting there and saying, this guy's cracking. This guy can't handle the pressure. Let's just continue to not do anything, and he'll keep coming down when we finally do get to the table.
No doubt. You're listening to the Krug Show, watching the Krug Show. Hit like and subscribe. If you hit like, that just helps the algorithm. More people find the stream. We got a bunch of people in here watching this tonight, which I appreciate every single one of you. If you have hit like and subscribe, thank you. If you haven't hit like and subscribe, please do. If you hit like, as I said, more people find the shows and the streams. If you hit subscribe and hit that notification bell every time we go live, you'll get a little notification saying Krug's going live. By the way, both these gentlemen, outstanding. And I only have people I really, truly love on this show. Follow Dieter on at the San Jose Mercury News. Listen to him on KMBR 680. And Dieter, tell people where they can find you on YouTube.
At Dieter Kurtenbach. And if there's another one out there, I have to kill him, which that doesn't sound like it's going to be very much fun. Luckily, no one would be dumb enough to carry this name around except for me. But Dieter Kurtenbach, the Dieter and Hutch show as well. We do a weekly, and will be more than weekly outside of the summer with my man Jake Hutchinson of 95.7 The Game. But I'm around. You can follow me at Dieter, Dieter on X, or whatever the hell they call that hellscape now.
That's right. And of course, Frank in the Dungeon Show, and you see it right there, EN, the Dungeon Show with Frank Red. He's phenomenal. He's on YouTube. The Dungeon Show goes back to, what was the first year of the Dungeon?
20 years ago, man. It's a long time.
20 years ago on 1140 in SAC.
Yeah, a long time ago.
That's awesome.
Follow me at Big Frank Red on X as well. And this is a lot of fun, man. I really appreciate it.
It was great talking to you, Frank, man. It was great shit from you.
Let's not. We're not done yet. We got one last thing.
I'm done.
Your guys are not done yet. All right, 2 last things, and then we'll jet.
Sharks talk.
One, I'll get Dieter one thought on the Sharks at the very end, just so we don't lose everybody in the audience.
Yeah,
Bleacher Report had an article out today And occasionally I do work for Bleacher Report, so I kind of pimp their stuff a little bit. But anyway, there was like 5 or 6 3-way trades. So you automatically know that it's not going to happen because I don't know in my entire lifetime that I've ever heard of an NFL 3-way trade.
The entire NFL is Bob Myers.
Yeah, I mean, they don't do 3-way trades in the NFL, but they had some fun with this one. This was the Falcons, the Patriots, and the Niners. Now, I don't think that Ayuk's going to get dealt, but you never know where this thing could go. And I think there is a pushing point. I don't think the Niners, they're not going to let Ayuk hang out and just report at the last second in week 6 and get strung along. I think if they don't get it done at some point this summer, they may entertain the trade. But this is Falcons, Pats, and Niners trading. And the Falcons get Matthew Judon from the Patriots. The Patriots, of course, get Brandon Ayuk from the Niners. The Niners would get Mike Hughes, a corner from Atlanta. The Falcons' 2025 third-round pick. And the key pick is the Patriots' 2025 first-round pick. Now, first of all, I laughed just like Dieter just laughed when I saw that because Elliott Wolf would have to be the biggest idiot of all time to make that trade. But I was looking at the Patriots. I think there's I'll tell you right now, if Elliott Wolf came with that 3-way trade,
yes,
I love Brandon Ayuk. I think he's special. I know the Niners are inside their Super Bowl window, and I know it's unpopular to trade players when you're, great players when you're inside your Super Bowl window. But I am sprinting to the phone and yelling, yes, do it. Because the Patriots, I think, are a lock to be a top 5 pick.
No doubt.
If you look at them closely, maybe only Carolina will be worse. I think it's very likely it's a top 2 pick, and there is a chance that could be the number 1 pick in the entire draft next year. So maybe the guy from Bleacher Report didn't realize what he was writing or doesn't understand how bad the Patriots are. Yeah. But I don't care what Ayuk wants or how he fits, or if that trade gets offered, if I'm the Niners, man, I am absolutely doing that trade. I'll bite the bullet for 1 year. I'll bite the bullet. I'll go with Pearsall. I'll go with Cowing. I'll go with Debo. I'll figure it out. But if the Patriots are offering their 2025 first round pick in any trade involving Ayuk, I'm pulling the trigger.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, somebody's getting
fired.
Won't. No,
somebody's getting fired. Yeah.
First of all, they don't want to pay Judon.
Right.
Yeah.
You
Which I kind of get because they did sign
the Pats
him.
Do
right?
have a ton of cap room. They do have a ton of cap room. They have like $40 million of cap.
I mean, he's like, how old's Judon? He's 34. How old is he?
He's older. He's older.
His
and he's coming
contract.
He makes $9 million a year,
and he's coming off a year where he got hurt. So, 2 years ago he had 15.5 sacks.
No, he's a good player, but they don't want to pay him big money. So this would be ice cream and cake for the 49ers.
Yeah.
I'd like to live in a world where that was reasonable because now let's just pretend that we live in this very silly world that was just posited out there by Bleacher Report. Let's just say the Niners do get the number 1 overall pick with whatever happens this season because they make this trade with the Patriots, who are going to objectively suck.
I mean, if they win 6 games, I'll buy us all beers. I mean, come on.
Oh, yeah.
Come
6-pack for 6.
They're not winning 6 games. They're winning. I mean, this guy says 10-6. Yeah, right. No way.
Sure.
They are.
Maybe lay off the croissants there.
They're a 5-win football team max.
In that division, too, it's got to be noted. Even if you don't think much of the Jets, it's still Buffalo and it's still Miami. I mean, hell, you don't even have to think anything of Miami. So, listen, Drake May is going to be out there just head spinning. The Patriots might want to take someone else number 1 overall at quarterback after Drake this season. But let's say the 49ers were to make this deal. They don't have Brandon Ayuk for a year, but they get the number 1 overall pick. You then can do 2 really interesting things. And neither of them really, one of them uses the number 1 overall pick. And the second one is even more interesting, which is you can just ask for anything from any team. And now you are loaded in the draft in perpetuity. For years to come, you're just loaded with 2 first-round picks. What a blessing that would be for John Lynch, where you get the Trey Lance deal plus, and you're the one winning it, as opposed to losing it like last time. And the other one that you could do, and I'm really ready to get yelled at here. You could draft a new quarterback and let Brock Purdy walk away.
Oh no.
$60
That's
million.
so mean. That's so
You don't have to
No.
pay a quarterback $60 million a year, and you say, we are going to continue to build our team the way that we've built it the last 3 years, which is around a cheap quarterback. Now, first overall pick doesn't get that cheap for that long, but you're betting that Kyle Shanahan is the true genius of the operation. If he can turn Mr. Irrelevant into an MVP candidate, look what he can do with number 1 overall.
What do you need that for when you got Tanner Mordecai sitting around?
That's
and then
you're
forgetting Tanner Mordecai.
Completely owned. That's a good point.
Okay, one last Niner bit, and that is this audio. I had Brent Jones on the other day.
Yes, that was awesome.
And I asked him a question about Kyle Shanahan, and here's what Brent Jones had to say, and I want you guys' reaction. I guess I should probably throw the volume in.
You let me know what he said, Larry.
It's always these sound bites are better when you have volume. I've noticed that. When you see Kyle though now, and he's the Super Bowl so elusive for him, there's this kind of growing number of Niner fans who just feel like he's like fair game to just tee off on. When I say Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, do you see the comparisons and how do you feel about, Kyle as he still has that one hurdle to climb?
First of all, with Mike created a great amount of confidence in the offense. The offense was so confident in his approach to game planning, play calling, everything. Kyle, I believe, is 100% the same way. I think Kyle is so innovative. I think what he's done with formation and motion crushes everybody out there. I will fight. I will physically fight if somebody comes up and gets in my face about Kyle, because that tells me they don't know football. And to just rant and rave because you haven't won a Super Bowl. You know how many great coaches haven't won a Super Bowl? There's a lot.
There you go. A little bit on Brent Jones, Brent Jones on Kyle Shanahan there. Give me your thoughts. I mean, Brent will fight if you tell him that you don't think Kyle Shanahan's that great.
Subtle.
So if Brent feels like you don't know football, he'll kick your ass.
Yeah.
No,
really dispelling the stereotypes there, Brent.
I love Brent. Hugh says, relax, Brent.
Yeah.
Look at the Red Eye. Red Eye's bitter. He says, Brent Jones is an idiot. His time has passed. Or
they should run the offense through Brent Jones.
Oh, no, Brent Jones is an idiot.
Let me
what do you guys think? I mean, what do you think of what Brent said about Shanahan, and what do you think of the people that, the Niners have last 5 years, they've, they lost 2 Super Bowls, they've lost 2 NFC championship games, but they've been to, they've also been really, really good. And outside of Kansas City, they were probably, if there's one team that's a dynasty of this era, you can't call anybody a dynasty hasn't won a Super Bowl, but the Niners are probably the second team to Kansas City as far as who's been the best team in this era under Shanahan. Where are you on the Shanahan criticism?
He hasn't won a Super Bowl, so he's not perfect, you know.
No doubt.
But I love Brent's loyalty, man. When you're on a football team, a basketball team, you got to be all in, and this guy is all in. So I can appreciate that, but I also can appreciate what you said. Also, take your play sheet and all of your wizardry and all your knowledge, and still take a step back and be willing to make some in-game adjustments or change up a little bit. So I'm rooting that the guy win the Super Bowl so he can get all this crap off his back. But I think he might need to step outside of himself a little bit, even though he's brilliant. And, it took Andy Reid a long time to win Super Bowls. People were on him, but he ultimately did it. So I think Mike Shanahan is a hell of a football coach. But a little more conventional football sometimes, I think, might be the key to get him over the top.
Larry, I like to play a little game called What If They Traded Coaches? And so if you were to do a coach-for-coach trade and just go down the list of every team in the NFL, Kyle Shanahan for this team.
Sean McVay.
Here's a list of teams that wouldn't make the trade 1-for-1 for their head coach in Kyle Shanahan. The LA Rams. That is the only team in the NFL who wouldn't make the trade. Even the Kansas City Chiefs would make the trade for Andy Reid because they don't know how long Andy Reid's got. And Kyle Shanahan's got a lot more football under his belt in the years to come. And by the way, Kansas City, don't forget, they made a bet on a guy who hadn't won a Super Bowl in Andy Reid. That worked out pretty well for him. You don't think that, the Baltimore Ravens, as good as John Harbaugh is, would make the trade for Kyle Shanahan? You don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers would make Kyle Shanahan the fourth head coach since Chuck Noll? You don't think that Jim Harbaugh, the Chargers wouldn't have gotten Kyle Shanahan over Jim Harbaugh if they had the chance? That the Green Bay Packers wouldn't take the master instead of the student in Matt LaFleur? Or that Dan Campbell wouldn't be out the door in Detroit? Or that Mike McDaniel wouldn't have a job in Miami? Kyle Shanahan.
Would you trade Kyle Shanahan for any other NFL head coach head up?
The only one I would do is Sean McVay, and honestly, that's just because it would be interesting. And I don't think you lose anything. I don't think you gain anything. I don't think you lose anything.
I think John Harbaugh and
John Harbaugh was on the hot seat not very long ago.
No, he was, but he rallied though. I mean, he did.
To me, the hottest coach in the sport right now is D'Amico.
D'Amico's fantastic. You don't think that the Houston Texans would have massively preferred to have today? If you said D'Amico Ryans straight up, they're taking. No,
I think they would probably trade D'Amico for Shanahan. I don't think I would trade. I don't think I would trade Shanahan. I would probably take McVay. That's about it.
That's about it. They're the same thing, by the way. Just one of them's won the Super Bowl, and you know what? Kyle Shanahan's been more successful than Sean McVay overall. And he's been to the same amount of Super Bowls.
And he's been better head to head, that's for sure.
No doubt about that. Sean McVay is a wonderful coach.
I think Lynch helps him though. I mean, Lynch.
Yeah.
I mean, he got a good team to coach.
You don't think that the LA Rams operation does a pretty good job there too? They have Brad Holmes forever. Les Snead. I think Sean. I'm not going to throw any negative shade on Sean McVay. But the notion that there's anything between him and Kyle Shanahan is ludicrous. And honestly, it's probably not even worth the trouble if you were playing the trade your coach game. Every other team in the NFL says, yes, we'll take him. Straight up, 1-for-1. You get our guy, we'll take yours. Every other team in the NFL says we'll do that except for the Rams. And even then, it'd be a fun little experiment.
Here's the thing, though. I mean, you look at what the 49ers have done from a personnel perspective. I mean, Kittle, fourth, fifth round?
Fifth.
I mean, Debo, third round?
Second.
I mean, Ayuk, end of the first round.
Right.
I mean, they got players that seemingly always play above their talent level. Now, you give Shanahan credit for that, but they got some hell of a players, man.
No, they do.
Well, Kyle did have full personnel control when he showed up, and he has only recently ceded it to John Lynch.
And he's missed. I mean, let's be honest. They traded up for Dante Pettis, and they traded up for Jalen Hurd, and they traded up for Joe Williams, and they traded up for C.J. Beathard, and he's missed on some offensive players. He's not the best personnel coach. But I will say this, they always do have talent. And to me, the bigger thing, that's more of a Lynch thing. But the one thing about Shanahan, his teams play hard. I mean, name me I watch every game super close. I mean, not that you guys don't. I know you do as well. But NFC Championship game, when I saw Chase Young and Kevin Givens truly Cadillacing, truly loafing on the backside, I was like, what am I watching? I mean, I had not seen an example of that. So now fast forward from Sunday or Saturday it was, I guess, to Tuesday. And I say to Kyle Shanahan, I said, Kyle, and I wanted to couch it with a positive because I didn't want him to feel sometimes you don't get an answer if the subject feels attacked, right? It's an art of asking a question and getting an answer. You can ask the toughest question and have everybody go, man, that guy asked a tough question. But if the subject blows you off and gives you some short, trite, one sentence answer and doesn't play ball with you, it's game over and your question's wasted. Yep. So I said to Shanahan, because I knew there was a chance for that. I said, Kyle, I've been watching you coach for years. And I think if there's one common denominator of your teams, to be completely honest, is that they really do consistently play hard every single week. That being said, in this game, there were some examples in the fourth quarter of a couple defensive linemen who did not look like they were going full bore. I said to him, is that your culture? Did you watch that on the film? What did you think of that? He had nowhere to go. So he admitted that he's like, yeah, I saw it, and it's not our culture. and I didn't like it. And then I think it's an isolated example. I don't think that it's, indicative of how we normally go. Within 24 hours of that, John Lynch is calling a press conference saying that we're not going to see loafing anymore. Steve Wilkes at his presser literally came out and stared right at me. I was off to the side. He stared right at me as he addressed the whole, did these guys jake it in the NFC Championship game? I'm just saying, for the most part, I judge coaches by, are you effective on your side of the ball? So if you're a defensive coach, do you allow a lot of points? If you're an offensive coach, does your offense produce a lot of points? Mm-hmm. His offense produces a lot of points, and his team plays hard. As far as I'm concerned, it's game fucking over right there. Yep. Does your team play hard? You're an offensive coach. Do you score points? Yes and yes. That's it. You're a good coach.
Right.
Right? I mean,
he's one of the best coaches in football. There's no doubt.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's right. Listen, 49ers fans would love to get rid of him, or at least a vocal minority would love to get rid of him. And I just want to remind people, much like in the dating world, if you're married or hitched up, I don't think you want to be out there in the wild, wild west right now. I don't think you want any part of that evil. Hey, be grateful for the grass you got.
Yeah, seriously. And believe me, do I think Kyle Shanahan is above reproach and can't be questioned? No. I question him all the time.
Absolutely.
But there's a right and wrong way to do it. There's a right and wrong time to do it. And this fatalistic, because he hasn't won, he'll never win. Well, if you made that argument about Andy Reid, you've missed out on 3 Super Bowl titles in Kansas City because he went over 13 in Philly.
Every rookie head coach is never going to win the Super Bowl because they hadn't won it yet. I mean,
you haven't done it until you've done it.
No.
Right?
Does Kyle I asked
KD can't win the big one. Oh, he can, I guess.
You know what would really suck? If he wasn't in a position to do it. Can he? Absolutely he can. We can point out all the reasons why he can. And that's not, again, it's not like he's beyond reproach. We can point out what he could have done differently in those games to win the games. Would that have happened? Perhaps not. Players also have to execute. But, if we do have some...
Calling him Kyle Levy, saying he's basically the Bills, Marv Levy.
Hall of Fame head coach.
Yeah, I mean, and you can have that bottom line approach, but Marv Levy was a damn good coach too.
Yeah.
All right. Last thought on the way out the door.
Enjoy the Jaguars.
Dieter, did you write about the Sharks? Are you passionate about the Sharks? Mike Greer is going to draft. What's his name? Macklin Celebrini with the first pick. When the draft is Friday, I believe. Tomorrow,
4 p.m.
And the Sharks have traded the number 14 pick that they acquired from the Penguins for Erik Karlsson over the summer, along with the 42nd pick, to the Buffalo Sabres for the number 11th pick. So they have the first pick and the 11th pick.
That's right. That's 2 game changers because this is a hell of a draft. So you get Celebrini, and he's that 200-foot two-way forward that is foundational to winning hockey games in the modern game.
Is he Connor McDavid or not as good?
Well, no one's Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid legitimately might be the most talented player to ever touch the ice. But we're talking Sasha Barkov.
Is there anybody you can comp him to?
Sasha Barkov, Jonathan Taves. I don't know if we want to go full Nathan McKinnon, who just won the Hart Trophy, but
Avs.
Yeah,
I'm showing my hockey knowledge there.
No, like Larry, legitimately, this is a guy who the casuals will know about. He's going to be that good. Sidney Crosby is an aggressive one because, again, we're talking an all-time great player, a guy who lived up to the hype. But that is the kind of game that Celebrini is. He's cerebral. He sees 3 steps ahead of time. He can play it on both ends. He can throw his weight around a little bit. He's got a quick shot. He's got a beautiful pass. He's a surefire number 1 overall pick in a really, really good draft. I just think that this is a total game changer for the Sharks. And I love the possibilities at 11. 2 names that you got to watch for tomorrow. Cole Iserman, who was
Steve Yzerman's son?
Well, no, it's different Yzerman spelling. And by the way, the Red Wings would never let Cole Yzerman go to a different team than the Red Wings, where Steve Yzerman is currently.
So I know my Yzermans.
Hey, if you got to shoot from the blue line, do it. Regardless, Cole Yzerman, left wing, U.S. national team program. I think he had 18 goals in 9 games at the World Juniors. I mean, he's unbelievable. Left wing, played with Macklin Celebrini at Shattuck St. Mary's, the prep powerhouse. This is a guy who scored almost 70 goals last year, just blowing away the competition. at the under 18 level. He was going to go to BU next year. I think the Sharks could get him in. And
can they go straight to the NHL, or does he got to play in the minors?
He would if he comes to the Sharks, if he goes to a team that's in a clear rebuild, he goes right to the NHL level. There's not going to be any AHL with this guy. There's not going to be any minors. He can either go play at BU for a year, as he was planning on doing because he is 17 years old, or he can come in, play next to Celebrini, who was going to be his roommate and all this stuff. They're very tight. He's an exceptionally talented player. No nepotism or friendshipism here. The other guy who I love, this is my draft crush, Carter Yakimchuk, who plays for the Calgary.
What did you call me? No.
Yeah, right.
Yakimchuk? Did you just make up that name?
No, I'm telling you, he's
Carter Yakimchuk.
He's a defenseman for the Calgary Hitmen in the WHL, and you got to watch.
What does his buddies call him? Yak?
Yak. I mean, clearly. I mean, it's obvious.
What's up,
Carter.
Yak?
They call him Carter. This is.
Or maybe they can call him. Wait a second. Wait for it.
Hit me.
KY.
CY. But
all right, now I'm amusing only myself.
This is hockey talk is me only amusing myself. It's masturbatory radio. Regardless, this is a guy who I like to call it heavy metal hockey. He hits big, he shoots big, and he's out here looking to take ankles from the blue line. You've never seen a defenseman with dangles like this guy. He's going through legs. He's making dudes look absolutely foolish at a very high level in the WHL, where you got to be really physical. That Western style hockey, it's big, it's heavy. This guy is a load of fun, power play ace from day one. I would love to see the Sharks get him. I think they need to add a defenseman with that second pick just because of the way that their talent is stacked up, a little bit heavier on the forwards than the defenseman right now. Yakimchuk is maybe more of a flair pick than sort of this foundational sort of every, penalty kill, power play, sort of 24-minute a game guy that you kind of are looking for. But man, he'd be so much fun. I think the Sharks are in a great position to add not just one, obviously, in Macklin Celebrini, but a second foundational player. And you add Will Smith into the mix and some of the other guys in this system. I mean, they got a real chance. They're going to suck for a couple of years, don't get me wrong, but they have a real chance to have an incredible foundation when this thing really gets going. It can get going fast, and it can get going deep into the playoffs when it finally does get there. And that's exciting for me because, frankly, it's been a minute since we've had great hockey here in the Bay Area, and it's just such an awesome sport, and I love covering it, and I'm excited to get back to covering it.
Mark Graves says, if you got Chuck in your name, you're a hockey player. That's I actually was a hockey player. It was Larry Krueger Chuck, but then I got rid of the Chuck just because I didn't want people knowing
Ilya Kovalchuk, Dave Vanderchuk. Yeah, it's this checks out.
Frank Redchuck. Yeah, there we go. Good stuff. We even got a little hockey mentioned in there. Guys, I love streaming with you guys. Almost 4,000 people hanging out in the room tonight.
Wow.
A lot of people, some watching on Twitter, some watching on YouTube. Definitely give these guys a follow. Frank's been doing this for a long time. He's fantastic at it. Dieter is one of the best, one of the most underrated media guys in the Bay.
Thank you.
That's why I keep having these guys on the channel, because they are fantastic. Thank you. And we'll just read the starred chats and then we'll jet. Kenny 49ers says, Larry, do you really know Fernando Vina? That's my homie. Yeah, well, I mean, he doesn't remember me probably, but Fernando Vina is a Sac guy, and I went to Sac State. And did you ever have Fernando in the dungeon?
No, I never had him on.
He's a great guy. He's I think he might have played for Elk Grove. Anyway, but Fernando's a great guy. I interviewed him 15 times, and he would know me by face, but I don't know if he would know me by name. But you can ask him. But yeah, he's a Sac guy, and I'm a Sac State guy. So what can I say? ZJ says King's supposed to be getting Kyle Kuzma.
That'll fix it.
That would be nice, huh? Kyle Kuzma to Sacramento?
I guess.
I'm going to give it up Harrison Barnes, I'm assuming, right?
You got to somebody who makes big money. It's going to have to be going.
Kyle Kuzma kind of sucks. Just
well, I'll tell you, what sucks is his sweaters. Have you seen the sweater that he wore?
God.
They're quite large.
It looked like a pink snake.
It was like, dude, I don't care if that's in style. If that's in style, there's no style that, that's not a style I want to be in.
Yeah.
But he had that sweater. I saw him wear it to a game one time. I was like, oh my God. MF says, Larry, what's the scouting report on Grant McCrae? He's a giant outfielder, and he just got promoted to AAA, and he can play a little center. He's not really a home run guy. He's more like a 15 home run guy. He's a pop, not power guy, but he's got extra base potential. He can play center field. He's athletic as hell. I think he'll be up probably in September and probably for good. He's a pretty good player. Not bad. I don't know if he's going to be a hitter or a star, but I think he's like a 15 homer, 15 steal.
That's exactly what the Giants need. Another 10 to 15 homer a year guy.
Yeah. And he did. MF says he went 4 for 5 tonight in AAA.
Well, did he hit any of them out of the ballpark?
Yeah. That at this point, we don't know.
No.
Good stuff, guys. What do you got cooking the rest of the week? Frank, you streaming anytime soon, or do you have a schedule that you stream? Is it always Sundays?
Yeah. Well, Sunday night has been the night that I've been really consistent with, and every now and then I pop in, in the week if something interesting happens. But so I'm looking forward to Sunday, probably sometime between 8 and 9. We'll do a couple of hours and have some fun, man. Gentlemen, thank you. This has been a pleasure.
Oh, no question.
I really enjoyed myself.
And once again, it's at Big Frank Red on Twitter.
No, it's
Frank.
Frank
Red?
No, at Big Frank Red on
at Big
Twitter.
Frank Red.
And I'm gonna talk to you, Larry. 'Cause I need to find a way, to maybe position myself a little better. But
we'll talk it over. We'll definitely see what we can do.
Larry, the media mogul.
Dieter, what do you got cooking, Dieter, the rest of the week?
I'm hosting the morning show on KMBR on.
Nice.
I better get this right. Tuesday and Friday.
Okay.
And then listen, man.
Solo or with Murph or with Marcus?
I'm doing Marcus Thompson on Tuesday and Kerry Crowley on Friday. So my apologies in advance to both of those gentlemen for having to put up with what's going to be 4 straight hours of hot Sharks draft takes, Larry. That's where I'm at.
No, don't say
you know where I'll be tomorrow.
Marcus is going to love
PM.
that.
Yeah, Marcus is gonna be all over Celebrini. Tell him, start throwing like hockey trivia at Marcus. He loves hockey
trivia. That's fantastic. I you know what? I might do it. Take care.
All right, for Dieter and for Red, I'm Larry. Have a great night, everybody. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of.